another show. We are so glad that you are joining us for another edition of our wonderful deconditioning series. As you know, when you start your experiment, one of the first things you do is you start looking at, okay, how do I start deconditioning? So we wanted to give you all the different tools and modalities that is available out there to help you on your journey. All of us, as you know from human design, are very different and very individual. So what works for one might not work for another. So this is our kind of way of like showcasing all the amazing tools that is out there for you. So we are super excited to introduce our guest for this week. But as you know, as you've been watching, ooh, she wanted to peep in and say hi. As you know, we always want to keep you in the know for what's happening in our skies, why you might be feeling, why you're feeling. All the things that are happening in your life, there is usually an explanation and it can be seen in the transits. So let's get our expert meteorologist here to illuminate the skies for us and all of you. So here we go, tag team out.
Tag. Neutrino
Yeah,
meteorologist.
we have arrived. Hey, Moni.
Hello, hello. It's such a wonderful welcome from Moana.
Oh my God, she just keeps doing it. The
And I
lady
love
knows how to throw down, let me tell
it.
you.
Absolutely. You
Mhm.
ready for the transit weather?
I am. You know, I haven't been paying attention, so we're into 50 and 3. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, 50 and 3 until tomorrow, the 24th. So this will relate to how you maybe have been feeling for the past few days and up till tomorrow. And then as we're kind of like processing like what this was. So
Mm.
the gate 50 in the sun is this energy of values. And for Earth in 3, it is difficulty at the beginning. So what do you have to tell us about that one, Danny?
I love difficulty at the beginning because I'm forever seeking it. Yeah. Meaning I live out a lot of difficulty at the beginning because I have a gate 60 looking at it. It's been one of my things. Every time it's in a long-term transit, I know. So this is this sacral energy to put things in order, this gate 3. And I mean, it's a terribly mutative energy is because whatever it's about to generate wasn't in existence before. And it sustains at bringing this out, and it's a turbulent time. It's like because it's individual and it's a format channel, so it's got a deep melancholy that there's nothing but chaos. This just sheer adrenalized, senseless. I can't tell until it finally gets put into order. So,
Fascinating.
yep.
All right, well, we'll start off with the sun in gate 50, and this is called the cauldron, and it's the gate of values. And it says the value of historical continuity whose traditional values serve and enrich the present and future. It's a splenic gate, and it's part of tribal circuitry, and tribal always thinks support. That's the keynote that we put together with tribal, and it's specifically part of the defense circuitry. And so it links up with gate 27, which is the energy of caring, and then the 2750 make up this channel of preservation. So gate 50 is called the guardian. It is the tribal lawmaker establishing right or wrong. It's the spleen's fear-driven mandate to maintain its own viability by protecting and guiding its young, and its cognizance of which values, laws, and rules safeguard how the tribe cares for its own. It's instinctual awareness, scrutinizing which are corrupt or unjust, unnecessary or self-serving, or need to be changed or challenged.
All of those things. So 50 is always going to be channeling all the other gates in the spleen. 50 basically breathes life into the spleen because it's connected to the sacral. So important. And it's one of our profiling gates. When it comes right down to it, beyond the 6, there's this in the gate number 6. Um, but gate 50, this cauldron, it's desire to make these values. I've always found gates 50 to be basically really deep, but really deep right now because it's so intuitively right now. And think of what 50 is saying. So I think it's funny how fear does drive intelligence. That's one of the lessons we learn. There's sudden little fears snap and we get smarter because of it, or we fall into the abyss, of course. Um, and so 50's fear is about responsibility and taking on too much responsibility, and ultimately so much so that too much responsibility leads to we can't feed everyone. We can't educate everyone. We can't. This is too much. Sort of like what's going. Yeah, it's just too much, and it's just a lot of things. So we can't get to everyone. So 50 is very deep. It's very deep. It's very now as well.
Fascinating.
Mm.
All right, so then we have the Earth receiving the solar energy. The Earth is in gate 3, which is called difficulty at the beginning, and it's the gate of ordering. It's the acceptance of limitation as the first step to transcendence. It's a sacral gate, and it's part of individual circuitry. And so, individual, think empowerment, that's the keynote we're going to associate with it, and it's part of the knowing circuit, right? And it links up with gate 60, which is limitation, and then the 360 make up the channel of mutation. And it's transcending confusion and establishing order so that something new and potentially viable can take hold in the world, connection to unique and individual knowing with personal innovation and the potential for making a significant contribution. And it's patience and waiting for correct timing is imperative as the on off creative pulse prevails, right? Because the root has that on off adrenalized pulse. So
Yeah.
the 3 is like catching that. So the timing has to be correct.
The individual circuitry has it.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
the thing. So including all the integration gates, because they're also in individuality. So it's there through the individual definition, all of it, this creative pulse. That's why the melancholy is there, because once the creative pulse ends, the vacuum sinks in, right? And then as that sort of starts to lift, out comes the creativity again, because the pulse never stops. It's always going to keep coming back. And I love how 3 and I like how these gates go together, because when you see 3 and 50 in the sun earth on the personality side, and it's the cross of laws, and it says the law must be generated because there's a channel in here. There's a complete channel in this cross. That's the channel of mutation. So this cross is a generator. So the law and the values the law is about these values that tribally are sensitive enough to the right support for the right amount of people in the right way. Makes a good sheriff, makes a constitutional sheriff, so to speak, or what I'm saying, a fair one, a fair sheriff. And so with the right values, these values are everywhere. So gate 3 it helps literally bring it into order. Gate 3 brings the law into the world. Gate 50 recognizes it and says, yeah, and the rest of the cross does the parts that it does for this cross of laws. I
Absolutely
think.
fascinating.
Yep.
Yeah, so here we have the right angle cross of laws. So people who are born earlier this week, right? There'll be the right angle cross of laws, people who create, adapt, or evaluate laws and values to accommodate our species' evolution. It's lawmaking as a creative inner process based on humanity's instincts to survive mutation and change. And then that shifts into the juxtaposition cross of values. And this is people of influence who seize the opportunity to soften or lessen the severity of the law, thus ensuring that the consequences are commensurate with the crime.
I
And then
love that.
right? Isn't that like really fascinating? I've never like thought of that as like first you have the lawmaking and then the juxtaposition of across the values. People are like, hey, is this fair? Is this balanced? Is this correct?
Speaks to the abdicating nature of the fourth line to sort of give in a little bit and be like, well, that's what that would be. Right? The law's getting a little too harsh, and the fourth line's stuck networking, and they can't stop networking, so they got to bend a little here and bend a little there so they can keep their network rolling. That makes perfect sense.
That is absolutely fascinating. I always learn something new. And then finally, we move into the left angle cross of wishes. And this is people with the utopian orientation that transcend traditional values, who challenge both cultural and religious standards by projecting what the system might be.
We need that, because these left angle crosses are influential across the entire network, across all of the circuitry. That's what this left angle's doing, looking out over the other. So we need that. You know what it says? It says humanity has a certain amount of wishing for it. It sort of speaks to the idea of hope.
Hmm.
I mean, we can't beat the hope out of humanity, right? You can't say hope doesn't move things.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone starts hoping for it. Next thing you know, right? Stuff happens.
Hmm.
And yeah, and we get real things done. So Hope is an active yang force, and these wishes feels very much like that, like an active yang force. That's what it feels like to me. But I love this cross of laws up top, the right angle cross. This adaptation and these values, it's about the species speaking to our evolution of what is up with the species. It's the tribe. The species is our tribe. If there's an awareness gate like a 50 inside, well, I'll just go if gate 50 is inside the cross, it is about some kind of tribal awareness. No matter what the name of the cross is, no matter what else is going on, blah, blah, blah. If you see a 50 somewhere in that cross anywhere, boom, there's a huge tribal aspect, and it speaks so loud here. Creative inner process based in humanity's instinct to survive both mutation and, well, mutation is change. Yep.
Fascinating. All right, ready for the hexagrams?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
So October 19th through the 24th, the sun in gate 50 is this energy of values. And for the Chinese I Ching, the hexagram is fire over wind. And so the imagery for this one states, fire rises from wood, and clarity arises from subtle inward receptivity. This is the cooking place, the place for transmutation. So the noble one works to bring it into harmony. She straightens out her situation, her relationships, and especially and where she stands overall. This provides a good, stable basis for transformative work, harmonious context where destiny can be realized inside a well-made vessel. Your sense of who you are and what you are here to do crystallizes out and becomes clearly defined.
Fire over wind. It sounds like the wind comes underneath and stokes the fire, and the
Mhm,
fire heats the cauldron, because that's what gate 50 is called. It's called the cauldron.
mhm. It's the vessel in the I Ching, which is pretty neat too.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, I mean, it's this cauldron is where the brewing takes place. And the brewing in this case is the brewing of all the values and laws and this deep, rich tapestry of all the stuff that happened both before, now, and it's going to happen into the future. 50 is concerned with all of it. That's why its fear is too much responsibility. So it's not really in any of the other streams of awareness. So we can't call it a gate 7 looking into the future awareness, or a gate 13 looking into the past awareness, or necessarily a now. It's all of it because it's part of a source wave, just like the 59 and the 6 on it the other side. It's mirror. So I like fire over wind. And they said she, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The
So,
noble
and
one.
the,
Yeah.
yes, what Danny's referring to here, last week he had a hypothesis of how they come up with the she or the he within the I Ching image descriptions that I read out. And so what he noticed was that the bottom three lines seem to correlate that the solid lines are masculine and the broken lines are feminine, correct?
Yep.
So yeah, this one had she, but
The
it's actually.
foundational line is feminine. Yeah.
Oh, the foundational, not even just the bottom trigram. You're speaking the foundational line.
I noticed the bottom trigram, or I just noticed it seemed like it was weighted more towards the yin than the yang. But this week that couldn't hold true because there's 4 yang lines here and only 2 yin. So
So the
that
hypothesis has evolved.
yeah, it had to evolve quickly. So now we're down to the foundation line. Let's see if it holds true to a him on the
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So for the earth, it's difficulty at the beginning and it's water over thunder. So this one says the name of it in the I Ching is sprouting, and it states clouds and thunder sprouting. A noble one weaves warp and weft. At the beginning, clouds and thunder swirl together in a creative ferment. The creative impulse rises like thunder and flows out into the world's confusion. The word for warp threads also means a canonical text and a channel where energy flows. These are the first principles. You can weave all the colors of experience into the structure they provide, translating creative chaos into creative order.
They
Are
didn't
you
give us a masculine or feminine he or she, did they?
not in this one? No. Are you familiar what warp and weft is referring
No,
to?
no
Okay,
clue.
that's what I figured. So warp and weft, so when you have a woven piece of cloth, then
Mhm.
one direction is the warp and the other direction is the weft.
Oh,
So that's what it's saying, is that the warp threads also refer to a canonical text and where energy flows. So it's saying like how fabric is woven, like cloth
Yeah.
is woven. Then that same word also correlates to a channel where energy flows, and so you
It's
can. Oh,
this
go ahead.
gate 3 very much feels like, 'cause the name, the updated name, is just called ordering.
Hmm.
It's just ordering and putting things into order suddenly, though, a mutative order. So it's not like you meant to do it, it's not like you scheduled it, and it's not like it was no big deal. It's a huge big deal because it wasn't there before. Ordering just took place. That's the mutation. And that's a lot of mutation. And it reminds me of thunder underwater. I picture thunder bubbling up through the water, and I'm like, that's strange. Just like whatever's about to come out of gate 3 is new and mutative, and it's gonna sustain because there it is in the sacral.
It's really interesting. I like that you brought in that it's also referred to as like this ordering, and I love this last line where it says that within first principles, it's about weaving all colors of experience into the structure they provide, translating creative chaos into creative order.
Dude, it's perfect. Yeah, the tapestry finally comes to light. Oh, I see it. It's a portrait of man, somebody or whatever. It's a portrait of grandma. I see what you
Mhm.
did. Right. Absolutely. And not until the final threads are sewn does the ordering take place. So that's how our laws have come into place. It says our laws have been a mutative process. The laws that have governed humanity this whole time and keep evolving has been a mutative process. And since this is so deep, I would think that over the past week and up through today and tomorrow, there's a sense of duty waiting, percolating like the thunder underwater, percolating up, just sort. And you know what? Because it's so mutative, and then now it's not like I can tell anybody for sure. Oh yeah, you'll feel this thing. They will or they won't. Right? It's mutative. It's in a pulse. So if it shows up you felt a sense of duty and a sort of sense of stay with it because of rightness. It was right. The sense to do it because it was the right thing to do. Um, and it'll show up out of nowhere as a thing. So it'd be funny. I wonder if I had a big audience, I could ask their hands. So how many people this week totally didn't feel like doing the thing, totally didn't feel like doing the thing. Finally, the pressure got too much. They did the right thing. But if they could have gotten away with it, they wouldn't have. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But and they got caught up in doing the right thing, just sort of an energy towards a duty to our fellow tribe. Don't forget that sensitivity is required in the tribe. It's the sensitivity to spot the need for support. You got three words in that tribal stream: sensitivity, need, and support. And you can mix those up into quite a bit of verbiage, colorful verbiage to explain anything, really.
Mhm. Yeah, and so like tying it all together, I feel with I always start with the earth, right? Because the earth is what's going to ground us and it's what's going to receive that. So with the earth being in gate 3, I would maybe suggest, you know, as you said, like that sense of duty and ordering and what can you do to put things in order, right? And understand that sometimes it's like difficult, right? It's like imagine like cleaning your closet and everything's like falling on your face and like it's difficult at the beginning, but if you just start slowly taking it out and putting it down and organizing things, you're taking that creative chaos to turn it into creative order to then be able to receive that energy from the sun and shine that energy that values and what matters and what is worth caring for in that instinctual tribal survival way.
I love that. I just had sort of a cool thought. That's why I
Yeah,
guess I raised my hand. Actually, that was funny. It's like, oh, oh,
it
oh,
was
oh.
cute. I do the same thing, but I appreciate that you let me finish my little thought.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is it already disorganized some, but it was just this. I'm thinking about what a wild ride. If you just look at gate 3 all by itself, since that's in the earth, it means it's a wild ride because the earth is what's taking the ride, right?
Oh,
That's the material. The sun is just the crazy energy. The sun might as well be the turbulent wind or the choppy seas, but it's the earth that's actually taking the ride for us as it relates to an energy analogy. So, what a wild ride gate 3 is. Gate 3 is the roller coaster where you're forever getting up to the top. You know how scary it gets as you start to round the top
click,
and
click,
you are
click, click, click.
taking a magnificent drop down. Yeah, it's like, but it's like constantly getting to the top. You know what I mean? So like instead of 2 minutes to get there, it's like 8 hours to get there. It's like, when are we gonna get it? It just feels like forever. That's an interesting ride.
Mhm.
I would say take the ride. Closet analogy that Moni was saying. Start. This is about starting. Start your closet. Don't finish it. Don't worry about finishing it. And if you don't, then ordering didn't take place. And if you do, don't be surprised. That's how I put that.
I love it. That sounds great. All
I'm
right.
good.
Well, thank you, Danny. Thank you, everyone. We're going to be bringing Moana back up on stage.
Whee!
Tag.
So that was lovely. Thank you for filling us in. So, Danny, go take a nice breather
Oh,
before.
breathe out.
Yeah, take a breather before, or also whatever you were doing before, you like quietly listening in the back to be like, oh, I'm seeing her design play out through the interview. I'm seeing her design through the
Taking notes.
demo playing out, and then you like integrate that into the chart reading. It's like, mwah, chef's kiss. So if you want to do that too.
Is that for Moni or for me?
That's for you and your
For
chart reading because you
you.
do such a great job.
That's funny. I lost track for a second. I
Yeah,
She was
love that.
yeah.
great.
I love seeing
She
me
was
do.
saying nice things about you.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I get it now. Thank you. Love you.
Awesome. Okay, tag team out. Now time for the big intro. Boop. All right. So, without further ado, let's bring out our lovely guest. She is a 6'2" splenic projector, and she is going to show us all about how you can use yoga and pranayama. If you don't know what that means, she will explain it to help you on your human design experiment and starting with your deconditioning. So, without further ado, let's bring out Crystal, who needs to start her camera. There we go. I was like, I don't want to bring you out. And I was like,
No,
mic
it's
symbol.
totally fine. I was thinking, I was like, oh, the sun's setting. I should probably do something about light. We'll cross that bridge soon.
Yeah, if you ever feel like I need to leave now, to do a thing, I can pop you off and keep the train rolling while you're doing whatever you need to do.
Yeah,
So
I have to hit a switch, something,
yeah,
casual.
perfect. You're
Yeah,
you're you're fabulous. So, Crystal, we're very excited to have you on. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's been a good day. It's been a good
Oh,
day.
that's wonderful. So hopefully it's
Yeah,
going to be even better by the time we're done the stream.
it's so fun.
Amazing. So, Crystal, why don't you let us know what got you started on your human design experiment and how you're using the modality of yoga or whatever other tools that you want to talk about? Like, how did that journey begin? We want to get to know you and how this whole experiment for you started.
Well, well, um, yeah. So I've been just interested in esoteric sciences for like since I was 16. I remember my mom and I went to a yard sale and I found this book called The Secret Language of Relationships.
Ooh, this
I,
sounds like a goodie.
it
A
was a
little bit of
goodie.
goodie.
It's a goodie. No, it's
Yeah.
still a goodie. I still refer to it often. Um,
Amazing.
and yeah, pretty much it was an astrology book and it described the different decans in each sun sign.
Okay.
And yeah, I was so obsessed with it. I read my own, of course, and I was like, Mom, I have to have this book. And she was like, Sure, we're at a yard sale. I don't care.
Yeah.
And it changed my entire life. Like it became known as the Red Book in high school. And I mean, all my high school friends, we got super into astrology. Like
Yes.
we were like doing sun, moon. I remember I was just so upset with my mom because not upset. You know what? Mothers are really busy when they're giving birth, and we have
Oh,
to.
the birth time. Oh, let's hear the story because this is something that people are like, how am I ever going to know my
Your
human
design or
design if I don't
anything.
know my birth time? And that's
Yeah.
a snag. So let's hear how you got through that snafu.
Well, it was a big deal. I mean, for me, I remember my mom used to tell me I was born at around 11 a.m.
Oh, that doesn't
And
help.
no, it was so bad. It
I
was
was like,
so
what do
bad.
you mean
What do you
around?
mean? And I really had to like go through and release. I'm like, she was really busy during this time. I mean, extremely so. There was a lot going on. But I went throughout like a little mid college, still not knowing. And then I started, but it made me a Libra rising. And I was like, I would love to be a Libra rising. However, I'm just a little too controversial. Like I see the way Libras maneuver.
I was gonna be like, I'm a Libra rising. Do tell.
Well, I mean, I think they're fantastic. I just don't think that's who I am.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
time went on. And then in my shamanic priestess cohort, when I was getting that certification, I remember we pushed the time back a little and it made me a Virgo rising. And I was like, what is this? Anyways,
Whoa,
fast
yeah.
forward.
You don't get me Virgo rising vibes by like a long shot.
Oh, but I am. So it turns out I am. I ended up calling the hospital. And I called the hospital probably around like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I just really need to get my birth time. And they thought it was so strange. And they were like, well, you have to do this and this and that. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I don't want to know anything else on that birth certificate. Just tell me the numbers and an AM or a PM. And they were like, 10:18 a.m. I was like, perfect. And oddly enough, it just made me feel so validated, as though I had not been breathing and walking on earth for like the last 6 years. But I felt so validated as a human. I can't even like explain the feeling. Anyways,
I was going to say my story was similar, but I did it through my doctor. And they're like, you need to get your doctor to release the birth information. And I was harassing the doctor's office for quite some time.
Oh, I believe
before I finally got it. And then I saw it. It was like down to the minute. And I'm like, yes, achievement.
A human. I'm a real human now. I'm a real boy. I'm a real boy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really how I felt.
Moment.
It was crazy. I don't know why. Like, that's such an interesting feeling, but I'm sure anybody who really resonates with this like knowledge can share like how that feeling really like unlocked something. And just like,
so I was going to say, Crystal, you also do readings. So what do you tell people? Because I'm like curious to see if you do something similar, something completely different from when I come across this issue of when it's a person who's adopted or it's a person who was born overseas and they don't have access to their records.
I mean, honestly, I typically tell them like to have a chart rectified. I do not do that service, but if you want to be specific, I would say like have a rectification. Like
really? Okay, so I figured out another thing. So hot tip, people, adoptees, people who lost their records because of whatever scenario birth was given, all hope is not lost. The cells in your body know the time you were born.
I believe that.
Yeah. So you can use muscle testing to figure it out.
Muscle testing?
I don't know if I've ever talked to Moni about this. Moni, please freak out in the chat for me. If you've ever used this or not used this, but I've helped adoptees figure out down to the minute what time they were born using muscle testing.
What does that entail?
That's a whole other episode. This is about you, not me. So
look, I'm like, tell me. I'm like, please, I want to know more. Can we chat?
Yeah. Again, it's easier, and I make the other person do the muscle testing, but you can do. Anyways, look into a book called The Emotion Code and the Body Code, and Moni is going to be our like finale episode for the deconditioning series, and she's going to explain more about muscle testing. So tune in, everyone.
Yeah, that was a little cliffhanger.
I was like, what is that? So yes, please tune in. You're gonna
primed and ready.
You're gonna find all the things out about how amazing that tool is, and it's available to everyone, really.
Okay.
If you want to learn it, or again, if you're like, I'm not comfortable with it, either myself or Moni would be happy to help you figure out your birth time.
Sure.
Sorry, Moni, I'm like just throwing you into a thing now that you're like, I never agreed to that. But I'm like, I'll do it if you can.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, what a plug.
What a plug.
Yeah. I was not planning it. That way at all.
No.
So back to your journey. So you figured your first time and astrology, the gateway thing that everyone gets, into this kind of like, esoteric
100%.
sciences or whatever you want to call it. But yes,
Yeah,
do
that's
tell us more.
typically, yeah, so astrology and numerology had really been like my guiding ethos for a long time. And then I got my birth time, happy, all the things. And then 2020, I was sitting around. It was so funny while they were doing the transit, they were talking about the cauldron, because the house that I was in when I first heard about human design was called the cauldron. And so anytime I hear that, I'm like, oh, so that felt really like synchronicities. But yeah, I remember we were hanging out. So I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. And yeah, people say it's like a projector magnet, like it's just like a projector haven. There's so many projectors there. And I
Oh,
remember,
wow. It's like
yeah,
very interesting. I've never heard of this.
yeah. And
Oh.
so I was sitting in a house and it was maybe like 10 or 12 folks. And I think 9 of them were projectors. And I remember it's this couple, they're fantastic, a whole thing. And he turns to me and he's like, I bet you're a projector too. And I was like, and so like obviously psychotherapy jargon is very in like our mainstream. So I was like projection, like I'm projecting. He was like, no, like in human design. And I was like, well, what's that? Because give me everything. And so I went to their house the next day, the Cauldron, and they gave me my first human design reading. And I was like, oh,
Life completely changed forever, right?
Like a key. And yeah, I took it back to all my friends and we made a spreadsheet and we all just like, so all my friends are pretty similar to me in terms of like just thirst for knowledge, especially when it comes to just like knowing self, knowing other. And so we just like dove in really, really deep. And I've just been diving in, and that was 4 years ago now. Yeah. And I think more so than ever, I'm really, really living my design in this like very functional way. And I think the gift of human design is really taking a lot of this intuitive knowledge and making it practical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you can actually use it.
Yeah, like you have a strategy, you have an authority, you have a way of moving about, you have a way of being seen, you have a way, and it's not who you are, it's like how you are, and when you start to view it as like this mechanical process, you're able to kind of have this like objective standpoint of like, oh, this is just how I am, and now I need to figure out how to essentially like use this knowledge to maneuver the best. So yeah, I'm very big on it being like, I'm like, oh, this is just how we are, not who we are, how we are. These are the mechanical processes.
So I was going to say, if you had to explain to someone the difference between who you are and how you are, what would you say?
So who you are, I feel like starts to hit at this like soul level. And I think astrology does a really good job of talking about the who. I think it gets into like, maternal stuff. And I think human design can too, but it just has a different flavor, right? I feel like it really, the who is like the connecting to like this plane and like the cosmos around us. But the how is like the grounding. It's like this is how this human can best achieve these gifts in this chart, and like your astrology chart, like this is the how. This is the mechanical process to being your most aligned self. So that's the kind of the difference to me. One really feels almost like mechanics. Like when I think about like emotional waves and when I think about like, oh, this is how you get the best thing. It's like, oh no, this is just like literally like a machine. It's like input, output.
Right. I always look at the body graph like a car manual. I'm like, no, this is the vehicle. This is the manual. When you first see your chart, you're like, I don't know how to read this.
No,
that's how I felt when I first saw it. I'm like,
what is it?
I was like, oh no, this is not happening. I am not learning another thing to be able to decipher this.
Honestly.
I don't know if you felt that kind of resistance, but like my manifestor stuff was like, no. I'm not going to look at this. And it was another manifester that was borderline harassing me to keep looking
Mm,
into it. She's like, no, you don't understand. No, you have
mm.
to look into this. I'm like, I don't wanna. It seems like a lot of work. I want to do more
That's so
stuff.
funny. More
And then,
stuff.
like, give me more stuff to learn. And then it was a projector who sat down with me and gave a reading. And then that light bulb moment hit. And I'm like, oh, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. You guys win. I'm going to look
Yeah.
into what all this stuff
Exactly.
means. And
That's
that's how
so
it started.
funny. How long ago was
Yeah.
that for you?
I want to say we're almost in November. Oh my gosh. In
We are.
November, it'll be 2 years.
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah.
Funny, I essentially coach a 4/1 emotional manifester. And she and I were supposed to meet today and we didn't. But I can totally see, I feel like the wheels turn for her when I'm talking. She's like, huh.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, most manifestors are emotional, right? Like if you just look at the
Yeah.
breakdown, right?
Mhm.
But when it's a 4/1, you're like, oh, you unicorn manifestor. There's not a whole lot of you.
Unicorn, yeah. I mean, 4/1s in general, I feel like is already a rare type. But
I
then
was gonna say we have a 4/1 in the audience. I was really excited. And then I have a really great audience question. So what do you think of this? Do you ever wonder if it was out of our not selves that is resisting HD initially? Ooh.
hmm.
I don't know if you resisted. I resisted a lot.
No, I was like, give me, I've been this person. I'm like, please. I'm lost here. I'm floating and I'm losing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very cool. So I feel like I'm like taking you through tangent land. So
Oh, I
you
love it.
found HD, but
Yeah.
then what did you start doing for deconditioning? Like, I know today you're going to be talking about like yoga and pranayama, but like share with us all of you. Because again, like people's journeys is what inspires others to be like, oh, I've never heard of that. Or if it worked for her, it
Yeah.
might work for me, kind of thing.
Yeah. For me, deconditioning, I feel like in this odd way, I had already begun my deconditioning process before I had even found human design.
Oh,
And
that's
that,
amazing when that happens, right? Like when
yeah,
you intuitively, your body just knows, let's
just
let go of the
knows.
stuff that isn't us.
Yeah, you start realizing. And so for me, that was in my shamanic priestess like cohort. And because we started doing shadow work. And so
Mm,
shadow work, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest deconditioning tools ever.
mm,
And so it was through that and also yoga, honestly, before I even knew.
mm,
Yoga was the first place I ever gave myself a hug, like a conscious hug. And it really brought tears to my eyes. I was probably like 19 or 20. And yeah, so for me, that was when I think back to it, those two things, like finding yoga and like finding like shamanism was like, oh, okay, here are these pieces. It was this intuitive thing that I was already intuitively doing. And human design just came around and made it practical and gave me like verbiage for it.
mm-hmm,
Um, so yeah, for me, it was those two things. Like through yoga, I started um I mean, if I had to be envious of anything in human design, honestly, it would be gate 10. Like, I'm like, please give me the transit for that. Like, it's just the gate of self love.
I was gonna say, do
And
you have gate 10? Let me
oh, absolutely not. I only have gate 13 in
see.
there. My
You want to
identity
hear
is
something funny? Gate 10 is the only gate I have in the G.
good for you. I think
The
it's a
only
saving
one.
grace.
Really?
Yeah, I think, especially if
Tell
you
me
have an
more.
open ego, I just think,
Yes. Not yeah, completely. No gates in the ego. Zero. Zilcho.
okay, yeah, I'm like, you're already you're already struggling or dealing with the feelings of worth and
Oh yeah.
loss in like identity.
Mm.
The least you could do is have the gift of self-love and have it be defined. You know what
It's
I
gonna be
mean?
like I'm a Taurus sun. It's like treat yourself.
Oh, are you a Taurus? Good for you. Yes. Oh my God. And the girl, yes. So I noticed that a lot with certain like signs, they all
Yeah.
have gate 10, even if they have these two things totally undefined. And it's usually the signs that have a more grounded sense of self. Like I was given a reading to an Aries who's the 4-1 emotional manifester, but she had that gate 10. I was given a reading to a Taurus, had both of those things open, but they had that gate 10. Like
Oh,
a
that's a funny
Virgo.
pattern to notice. But yeah, so
Gate
keep going.
10 is a thing. It's the gift of self-love. And I noticed certain signs, like zodiac signs, especially if the moon sign is whatever, I noticed certain people, it just wouldn't match for them to lack self-love. And I say this in more of an objective standpoint as like a Cancer. Like cancers
Oh,
are,
my bestie's a Cancer.
yeah,
Bless
as
her heart. She has
and
so
it's
many Cancer placements.
and sometimes they really struggle with self-love. Like they can be, it's just a
It's like
naturally
overly giving.
interesting.
And I was going to say, if
Yeah.
you want to like nerd out over nodes, but before I do that, I was going
Ooh,
to say, we're
it's
going to
getting
take
too
a
dark.
quick commercial break for Crystal to get some
Light.
illumination happening. So 1 second
That's rude.
while we do that. And then in the meantime, I notice you, friends, in the viewers. What are you doing if you're not following us? And if you are following us, yay. So, and also tell your friends. Tell your friends to come join us on the stream. The more the merrier. We want to keep growing the fam and growing the lovely following that we have. So please go share with your friends, give us a follow, and if you feel inclined, go check out our coffee page where you can see all the other goodies that we can provide for you. So with that, back to our regular programming. There we go. Ta-da! Oh, you're muted. Let me unmute you. There you go.
We're back.
Magical. So we were talking complete side tangent of rising nodes. Yeah, so her node, so node astrology nodes are different from human design nodes. For those who are not astrology people, it's like, well, what is happening right now? Yeah, right. I was like, sorry, little side tangent. And we are going to explain the little difference between the two. So, astrology nodes, you have a north and south node. The north node is kind of the things that you kind of want to strive towards. Like, these are the things that it would be bueno for your soul to like go in that direction. The south node is the stuff we're instinctively kind of like our comfy zone. Like, this is stuff we're really good at already. And it's like, we kind of just want to hang out here. So the HD nodes, you have two sets, right? So that's what differentiates astrology from human design, right? Is you get two sets of all the placements. You have it on the design side and you have it on the conscious side. So with that, when you have those nodes, it's more, I'm like, Crystal, do you want, this is like a total side tangent, but let's see if you're able to explain this better than me, because I'm still like a baby compared to you.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. I actually was loving listening to the way you were going for it.
Oh my gosh.
I
Okay.
feel like for me, planets, I think when I am still grappling with my astrology brain with planets sometimes.
With planets in human design, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is like way advanced topic. Okay, so I'm still.
I have a book that I can just read a definition.
Yeah,
from.
so if I like, again, right mind, remember the things I learned about nodes. Is in your north node. There we go. Okay, so our lovely co-host is giving me some cheat notes. So human design nodes, okay, is our yeah, our co-host, the lovely, they're like laughing in the background. They're like, why are we not on? We need to talk about nodes. Sorry, I don't want to like side reel the conversation completely. I'll go back to Crystal, I swear. This is just a small side tangent.
We're just we're ciphering.
We're vibing. Okay,
Yeah.
so HD nodes, right? Comparison to astrology nodes, okay, is our environment and how we perceive the environment. Okay, so pretend life is a stage play, and the nodes represent the set dressing and the characters we meet. Right? But okay, there's some stuff here that's missing. So I'm like, when I learned about nodes, there was something about Uranus opposition.
Yes.
Okay. So the first, I think, 30 or 40 years of your life, is I can't remember which node. Somebody help me here. Was it the north
Node.
node or the south
North
node?
node. It's your north node.
It's your north node that you're like, you're chugging along in that direction. But then after the age of 40, Uranus opposition when you switch from south to north. Okay, perfect. It was south. That's what I know. I'm like, no, north is where you want to go. So you switch and you start living out the themes more of the north node that you have in your gate. So it's not so much I'm striving for this. It's more a thing that just happens once you hit your Uranus opposition. Did I nail that? Somebody give Danny's nodding. Thank you. I'm like, I'm still learning. Help. So there you go. Your short little like verses of like north versus close enough. Sorry, we're gonna do a proper episode on nodes. We actually kind of did already one on nodes, so go check that out if you're like, Moana completely butchered nodes. What are you doing? But anyhow, yes, we did. See, we did a complete episode on nodes, so go check that out. It's not, there's a replay up somewhere. Yeah, and we made it nice and pretty. So watch out for those slick thumbnails that we're designing now. And yeah, Crystal, you could be like, oh, now it makes sense, like the astrology versus the human design nodes. But yes, yoga. Back to yoga.
Oh.
Back to shaman practices and shadow work and all the things. Sorry. Back to regular programming.
I don't even know where we were.
We were talking about like, okay, yoga. Like, for example, what did you start doing with yoga for deconditioning? Like, were you doing like particular asanas, or were you like, I'm using a particular breath and I'm like bringing a center into my mind when I'm going through this flow posture? Because I'm like, I don't know anything about how you would fuse yoga and human design. Like, enlighten me.
Sure. So yoga for like, I guess when I think about yoga specifically for human design, I think that's how we got on the gate 10 in this whole tangent.
Oh yes, and then there was a weird tangent. That's why the nodes came out, because my bestie, her north node is Aries, but her south node is Libra.
Right. Okay.
So constant people pleasing tendencies, and she's a Cancer sun. And a bunch of Cancer women. So, and I was like, girl, you need to put yourself first. Like, go on now. But
come on. It takes time.
I was gonna be like, it's a journey. It's July 19th.
Oh, cute. Okay. Just curious. So for that piece, this is what I mean by the intuitive deconditioning rather than the like
prescribed deconditioning.
Deconditioning.
I'm doing it.
This is where I am now. I'm not gonna lie. This is where I am. I'm very much.
Hey, I did deconditioning parties with a friend of mine. Like, literally would look through our chart and be like, you know what? Let's pick this center and let's look at the not self themes of that center, and we're gonna dance it out. And we would like.
That's fun.
Yeah. So that was the thing we did, and we did it for other things too. We did like, okay, we're gonna pick this center. Let's tap on it. So we do EFT tapping and stuff like that. We had an EFT. Spoiler alert, we're going to have an EFT tapping expert who's going to be coming on next week who uses human design. So
nice.
Check that out. But yes, so I'm like, how do you do yoga? Because that's how I always did it. Like, you picked a thing, like whether it's your type or whether it's a center, and then you're like.
So when I think about, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying yoga was more of an intuitive deconditioning process where it was more about my identity and figuring out like self-love, basically, because that's something that's lacking when you don't have an ego or an identity.
But what if you do have an ego and identity and you're still struggling with self-love?
You should still do yoga.
Simple answer, just do it.
Do it. I'm telling you.
It's gonna help you there.
I truly believe so. And then, but in a conscious manner
yeah, just not like, I'm just gonna take a yoga class because Crystal told me it's gonna help me.
Honestly, if that's how you get in the door, then do it. If
Okay.
that's how you get in the door, it's like, I'm gonna just go there. Just go. Just show up.
You have
But
Crystal's permission.
yeah, I think you should. Your body's gonna thank you for it, your heart. But on a more conscious form of like
Yeah.
deconditioning,
Mm.
that really for me has been a lot of breath work. Because you're in human design, every center is associated with a body part. And so I also have an undefined emotional solar plexus. And
Oh,
so,
I'm like, my wave be going in. Do you feel it?
well, sure, probably, but our solar plexus is connected to our lungs. And so for people, that's like the body part that's associated with it. So when you're doing breath work,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hitting on that solar plexus. And so for folks who have an undefined or an open solar plexus, is able to like, basically help them decondition and release, because that's really all that is. And if you have a defined solar plexus, it helps you move through your wave in a more like system regulating way, because
Wow, that is
yeah.
fascinating because we had a breathwork facilitator come in like 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
but she wasn't very well versed in human design. So it's like very cool to like get someone who is in their experiment and knows how to use breathwork.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I guess maybe you can illuminate us. So I know, like, being of East Indian origin, that yoga itself has a breath work built into the system, and it's called pranayama. How is that the same or different from a breath work thing that you would do with someone else, like the
It's
somatic
not.
breath work? It's not? Okay. Because I don't know. I'm like, that's literally a
I would
question.
call so
Like,
in yoga specifically, while
yeah,
you're no, for sure. During like as you're flowing through asana,
yeah,
you should be activating your ujjayi breath.
the fire
And
breath.
so
So for
ujjayi
people
breath
who are
is
like, what
also
are all these
oceanic,
terms?
not fire,
Well,
oceanic.
oceanic breath, water breath?
Yeah.
Ocean breath,
So it's
sea
more of
breath.
like Darth Vader. You know how like
Oh, like,
Darth Vader's mask?
yeah. Okay, so no open mouth nonsense that I was thinking.
No.
Okay.
No mouth breathing.
No mouth breathing.
No
Like, don't
mouth
do that. Okay,
breathing.
got it.
It's actually
So it's all nostril?
this book, things are falling. Apologies, but I have to
No,
do
that's
this.
keeping it nice and
We're
exciting.
keeping
That
it real.
looks like there's no writing on that cover,
It's
by
a
the way.
lot of writing in the book.
I was like, this book could literally be your journal. Like, what am I looking at?
So this is Breath by James Nestor.
Oh,
Yes.
there you go. That's
There we go. Breath by
Was there
James.
a cover to this book, like a book cover
I
that
kind
just
of
went
hate
missing?
covers.
Okay, so you did take off a cover because I'm like, what
I'm
am
a
I looking
classic girl.
at? Okay, hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. So Breath by James Nestor. Anyways, huge book when I went through my embodied, like some trauma informed, like embodied breathwork training. We had to read this book. Mouth breathing is so bad for you. It is terrible. There used
Stop
to be
the presses.
look.
Why has no one said this?
Oh my God, it's terrible. First of all, when you mouth breathe, it's always going to be shallow. Basically, you don't have a filtration. Your nose is your filtration system.
Yeah.
So when you're breathing through your mouth, you're breathing in all these crazy different toxins, and it messes up your teeth. I mean, it's so bad for you. Mouth breathing. You read this book and you realize there used to be different cultures in the Amazon, and they used to tape babies' mouths shut so they could only breathe through their nose, because it messes up your skin. It's a whole thing. I get
Wow.
I'm very passionate about no mouth breathing. So obviously sometimes you can just, but then close it up after that. Like do that once, one and done.
Oh, wow. Give me one moment.
Yeah, go ahead. And then there was me, and I was talking about mouth breathing.
Yeah, sorry. Continue talking about mouth breathing. Give me 2 seconds.
Yes. Yeah, don't mouth breathe. So when you're doing yoga, you activate your ujjayi breath, which is your oceanic Darth Vader breath. And you use that while you flow. And then but pranayama is like the whole study of it. It's basically like prana is breath, yama is life force. And so another thing that you learn is that breathing, essentially, it's not just like breath, it's really your life force. And actually, animals, if you think about just like animals, mammals in general, animals that have a slower breath rate, or slower duration of breathing, they take longer inhales and slower exhales. They have a far longer lifespan than animals that are quick breathers like dogs or rabbits. So animals that breathe slow like turtles, or I don't know what other animals. Think about animals that breathe.
Canaries? No, but canaries live a long time. I used to breed canaries. Complete.
That was hilarious. Just came in out of nowhere. Canaries. I'm like, oh, elephants. Elephants also have a way slower breathing pattern. Pythons. So if you think about animals who are breathing slower, it's not just breath, they're maintaining and retaining their life force. And when you breathe faster, which a lot of times mouth breathing also causes you to breathe faster, you're using up your life force. So we have to stop thinking about breath in this very like static way and realize that it's the one thing that sustains us. It's really our channel to God.
Oh wow, I'm gonna need to let that simmer for a bit, because I'm like, I am a certified mouth breather, and not by choice. It's anyways, we're not gonna get into that. But I'm just laying no more tangents. I'm living in Tangent City today. But I want you to kind of, I guess, illuminate for us why breath is so entrenched in yoga, right? Because I feel like so much of what people think yoga is like, I'm just going from one posture to another. I get to be bendy. And it's like, no, there's way more to that. So I'm like, please enlighten us.
What I noticed a lot of folks don't know, even yogis and like practitioners, before there was asana, it was just breath.
I actually knew that, but yes, tell us more.
I tried to tell somebody that, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And they were like, this girl has no idea what she's talking about. And I was like, I think we should all go back and get our 200 hour again. But yeah, so in the beginning, there was God. And basically what that means is in the beginning, there was breath. So really, I think when people are thinking about yoga, and I think this is a very Western mindset when it comes to yoga, the first thing
another fitness class.
Yeah. And it's like, just like super like thin women, pale. It's a whole different, and that's not what it's about. It's really like the in tune, and I just mouth breathe. Honestly, I can't even think about, I do that all the time though. I'll be like, oh my God, you're mouth breathing. Sorry, it's really intense. I'm deconditioning.
Yeah. Oh no, it's an awareness piece, right? When you like catch yourself, it's like, oh, I'm doing that thing again.
Yeah.
And isn't like supposed to be how my body operates, right? That's the whole.
Yeah, it's not what it was.
That's the most basic way to decondition, is just catching yourself.
It's the awareness of it.
So you just saw a live demonstration of Crystal doing that.
I'm a crazy person, honestly. Gosh, what was your question?
Why breath
breath
and yoga are like so intertwined, and you were explaining that breath came first.
Yeah.
And again, like how self-love plays into you deconditioning. That's the rabbit hole we were going down. Yes. That's where we were.
So yeah, really, for me, I think when you think about asana,
which is postures, for anyone who's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, that's the postures, that's the poses.
That's the poses. Asana
like tree pose, dog pose, that
Warrior
kind of thing.
2, mountain,
yeah.
prayer hands. Yeah. So breath came first, and really it was a meditative practice, and that's what it's supposed to be. And that's what the breath is supposed to do, is keep you in a meditative state as you flow. And if you are unable to flow in a meditative state, you missed the point. Like, pull back on asana and focus on breath. If whatever postures you're in are not allowing your breath to flow within you, close mouth using your ujjayi breath, oceanic, Darth Vader, however that sticks.
But don't open the mouth.
No, I mean, and it's one thing to open the mouth and let all the hot air out and then seal the lips back.
Okay.
Don't inhale from the mouth.
Okay, so breathing out through the mouth is okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't inhale unless you're doing a breath work, session.
That's what I mean. A breathwork session, I'm pretty sure we had open mouths during the exhale.
If you're doing that, for sure, but that is not how you want your primary breath to be taken in. And if you want to take the woo-woo out for nothing else, that your filtration system is not being utilized when you're breathing through your mouth. Your filtration system is in your nose. This book is going to take all the woo-woo out, though, and it gives you nothing but science. He talks to deep divers. I actually met this deep diver the other day at a cafe. And
you mean like someone who free dives, right?
Free dives, yeah. And they're like down there.
They're like mermaids.
It's
mermaids.
wild.
Yeah.
He's a straight up merman. His eyes were so blue and they matched his shirt. And I was like, I think I'm in a trance. Are you actually like a merman siren?
Are you a person?
Am I talking to a shapeshifter? But anyway. Yeah, we got into this super like long drawn out. I'm not going to tangent that, but we really met in the middle because I was doing my breathwork certification. So I got my breathwork certification in July. I did my first breathwork session ever when I was in my shamanic priestess cohort. So that was probably like, oh my God, man, I'm aging. That was probably 10 years ago. So and every time I did a breathwork ceremony, it was just groundbreaking for me. I don't know. I mean, truly, like, I don't know how people are with plant medicine, but let me tell you, you don't need plant medicine if you're breathing. It really,
just like bring it back to the basics.
Yeah, it's the channel to God. Like, if you want to find your own inner divinity, it is through breath. It is a life force. It is not some static, like unalive thing. Yeah. So going back to yoga, if you are flowing and you can't breathe, slow the postures down and focus on the breath, because that's what you're there for. That's really what's giving you that meditative state. And I know for a lot of people, especially those more who I feel like have more of a balance of feminine and masculine, they function better. Like, they're able to find a meditative state better and flow. Because, like, if you think about feminine energy, it's like constantly moving. It's like cyclical, whereas the sun is up and it's down. It's up and it's down. And so movement is good for meditative states, but breath also allows your body to be active enough for it to have this cyclical motion to keep you in a meditative state. Because a lot of people aren't able to just sit down and meditate. That's really hard for them. Yeah. And so when you bring in breathing postures, essentially, and breathing patterns, it allows your brain to think it's focusing on something until it becomes,
I was going to say, it's an awareness piece, right? Because then there is a concentration focal point of like, okay, I'm focusing on this coming in and
exactly.
Going out. This coming in and this going out.
And the cyclical state allows your brain to cut off. Allows your body, the feminine, that's sometimes how they think, they allows the body to take over.
So here's where I'm like, break it down to us as if we're kindergarten children.
Sure.
What does bringing yourself into awareness do for you coming into your design and starting the deconditioning? Like, how do you put all of that together in a bow?
So human design, the first thing I tell people is your brain, and this is how when I'm giving a reading and I'm starting to talk to folks about authority, I'm like, your brain is not your authority. And oftentimes we are so in it that we can't get into our bodies. And so I think what the practice of breath, pranayama, breath work, what it allows you to do is figure out how to do that mechanically. It takes you out of your head. So you start off in your head. You're like, okay, or whatever kind of breathing pattern you're doing. You start off in your head, and then slowly the pattern and the awareness of it, it starts to become innate, and right, your body just starts responding to the breathing pattern that you're doing, and it allows you to go into your body. You don't have to use your brain anymore. You start to
It's
just
almost like a little like crack in the back door to like letting your body's
Mhm.
authority start shining.
Exactly. It takes the
Look at
brain.
that, I'm
Yeah.
learning.
It takes your brain out of the driver's seat, and it allows you to do that in a mechanical way. So then eventually you're like, you become familiar with it. It's familiarizing yourself with what it feels like to not let your brain be the driver and allow your body to be in the driver's seat. And then it's amazing what the brain can do when it's no longer and when it's able, when you're not tasking it with a job it was never supposed to do, like make decisions. The brain is like, it's here to get all of the inspiration, and you're able, like, DMT is being released in your brain, or some sort of crazy chemical. You're having all these like downloads and all this clarity now that you're not clogging it up with trying to make decisions for you. It's amazing what the brain is actually capable of when you start taking things off its plate it was never tasked to have. So,
Oh, wow. Yeah. I was gonna say it's like one of those those job advertisements where you're like, this is what your job responsibilities are, then you start the job and then they like keep piling on more responsibilities on there. Like I never would have said yes to this job if I knew this all this other stuff was also entailed. What is
honestly,
happening?
I always
So
tell
that's
people,
your brain.
yeah,
That's what we do to our brains on a daily basis. So sad.
exactly. And refer back to the job description in real life and for your brain. Refer back to the job description and be like, hey, this is what my job description says. I think we need to have a little check-in. So,
I
and
think that was a brilliant analogy.
yeah. Like, it was good. It's like, refer back to the job description, and this is what your brain is. This is what the crown and the ajna are tasked to do. Here's what they are not tasked to do. Find your authority, which is in your body, and let that start to drive you.
Mhm.
So,
That
yeah.
was brilliant. I'm like, that's a wonderful segue into Crystal showing us your demo on how we can start letting our body be in the driver's seat and start the wonderful process of coming into alignment with our design. So, with that,
Mhm.
I am going to pop away so we can see your magic.
Hello. So we're gonna do one of my favorites right now. We're doing this in my yoga class. We are doing the Nodi Sharana. I hope I said that right. Nodi Sahana breath. And so you can hold it a multitude of ways, but I think just for the ease of folks in their hands, pinkies and thumbs out. So let's just kind of close our eyes, ground down for a second. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Seal off the lips. Placing our pinky on our left nostril. Let's breathe in. Plug the nose. Release the pinky. Exhale. Breathe in from the left nostril. Place the pinky. Exhale through the nose. Right nostril, inhale. Seal off. Left nostril, exhale. Inhale, left nostril. Seal off. Exhale, right. Inhale, right nostril. Exhale, left. Continue this pattern for another 3 or 4 cycles. And as you allow the breath to breathe you, think about how you would like to be feeling. And then send your awareness to how you're actually feeling, not in your head, but in your body. Feeling the gentle rise and fall of the body. Find relaxation as the breath breathes you. Take another 4 or 5 rounds of this. Continuing to isolate between left and right nostril at your own time, at your own pace. As you inhale and exhale, what can you release? One of the major gifts of our breath is the power of release, the power of filtration. So, what are you bringing in and breathing out what no longer serves you? Continuing this pattern, paying attention to what it feels like to close off each nostril and to only have breath coming in from one side and out of the other. Creating a breath loop as you go up and down, left to right, right to left. This breathing pattern brings regulation to your nervous system, signaling to your body that you are safe, bringing control to your emotions. Oftentimes in our lives, emotional regulation is one of the hardest things to find. Let this be one tool that you can come back to at any time to bring some sort of grounding and a moment of peace. As you finish up these last few rounds, notice in your body how you feel post breathing. I hope that in this, an aura of peace has been able to wash over you in the most simplistic way. That is the gift of breath.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Crystal, for walking us through much, what was I going to say? Like accessible way of doing breath work. You can just get your shaka fingers if you're from Hawaii out and just alternate back and forth and have some something to help ground you and again get you closer and closer to having your authority come through much easier. So with that, I hope our resident master chart reader is ready to dive into Crystal's magical design. So yeah, Perfect. So we have a wonderful comment saying my left nostril was a little clogged, but that was relaxing.
Oh, neti pots are really good. I know for a lot of folks, I should have led with that. If allergy season, I feel like it's always allergy season, but if that is happening, it can be hard, especially if it's that one that's super clogged, you can't breathe.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I'm glad it was still relaxing.
Yay, amazing. So with that, I am going to tag team out and bring Danny on to have everybody get all the lovely human design insights through your chart. So with that, Danny, here we go.
Bam, we're in. It's so lovely watching you, Crystal.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I get a lot. Plus, I watch a lot, and it helps me because we're about to read. And so I always ask everyone the same thing up front. Is there something on your mind? You've been in this journey since 2020, right?
Mhm.
So like, and I heard you sort of talking about a little bit, you sort of smashed into HD and oops, and now, and then it smashed back into you basically.
It smashed back into me.
Yep. Oops, I smashed you back.
It did.
So by now there's things, it's like I've always wondered, or I'm struggling with this. I haven't still grasped this thing yet,
Yeah,
or different
yeah.
things.
Trying to think. There are things that I'm curious about. I think, I don't want to get too into composites, but I find composite charts to be extremely interesting.
Mm.
I think
It's one of
me,
my specialties.
would you say?
One of my specialties, partnership charts, right? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I think bringing in, oh, the chart, there she is. I wanted to hear what you had to say. You said something kind of juicy before you headed out. You were talking about, you said I had an interesting chart, mainly because there's nothing.
Because the only reason I even thought to say that is because Moana was like, there's so much openness, and I'm like, there is, and she said that, and then juxtaposition of that, I was like, but this is not open, this is dense, even though it's wide open. So you would have experienced this openness,
Mhm.
meaning 7 centers open, 2 pressure centers open, no motors defined, obviously, all these things, right? That would cause sensitivity. And every center has a theme, heightening the sensitivity of what the openness brings in.
Mhm.
Don't we get wise through the openness? The
Yeah.
definition is merely whom we are, navigating and smashing through all of that life, the life that we live. And so, with a theme on every single center, that just means that it can get quite confusing.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, it could just get quite confusing being you. And the only thing that would ever have alleviated that, like easily, so that you started to have a good firm footing on how do you love yourself, would have been if you grew up real supportive, or if you're a super supportive married at this point, or something of that nature, or have
Yeah.
best friends, that still are, but that type of thing with a certain supportiveness that empowers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not married. Um, I do have close friends.
Mhm.
It's definitely been a large journey of self. I feel like okay, also the planets, as we were talking about. I think rooting down in understanding. I feel like my conscious sun and my earth, I'm very like rooted in. I mean that 39, that
Have you read the lines to these things?
sorry, say that again.
Have you read the lines to 39 and 38?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You mean like the 6? Is that what we're talking
Yep.
about? Yeah, oh
The
yeah. I'm
ultimate
very
detriment. Both of
yeah.
them, how you sort of waffle between them. You go back and forth. They teach you.
Mhm.
Um, if do you know what I'm referring to?
You said I go back and forth between the 39
Between
and the 30.
the exaltation and the detriment of each gate.
See, okay, go into that a little bit
Yep, and
because
down there, and it's just something that was so worth reading into. I'm gonna crack open the book. Do you have this one?
oh yeah, okay, I've read that. I get into that because
This is
obviously
the Bible.
astrology.
And if
Um
you want, we're gonna teach you after this. So stay on after the show, because we go on and talk about stuff afterwards. If you just stay there, I'll be able to
Okay.
give you my number and stuff so we can start to, if you want to
Yeah.
learn.
I feel like, go ahead. Well, I'm gonna wait.
Well, this is what I noticed. There's a couple things in your chart that kept leading me back to deal with this girl's sun earths. Deal with
Okay.
them. We say and deal with them. I can talk about these arrows, but these arrows make you encompass all of it. So I would have to go so deep into every last little thing that to stay with the sun earths is really just appropriate because everything else will sort of come out from that. But
Mm-hmm.
38.6, so your earth. You
Mm-hmm.
see how that little down arrow is lit up? That's fixed into the detriment.
Yeah.
Meaning that's where when we say fixed, it's not absolute fixed like, like you just put it into concrete. It's just that's where it's strongly going to tend, but you
Mm-hmm.
still experience both. And it becomes a flavor in your life. And here's a thing that would have been easy to shy away from, but it's true. It's a thing that you're in there. 38.6 and the detriment, this misunderstanding that about the root of the struggle and the energy of stubbornness to insist and maintain one's position. People know Crystal as oppositional sometimes, just stubborn,
Yeah.
no. And you're like, no, and it's just they can't draw the horse to water in it. And sometimes it defies logic. It's like,
Yeah.
but dude, the fire, you're gonna die. I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like it defies,
Yeah.
and they're like wondering why you're willing to accept the loss.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself
That's
don't want to accept it.
yeah.
It's not help it.
I feel like that's something that I've been very cognizant of is just
It's there
my
to watch.
yeah, it was my actually even when when I was talking to Moana earlier and I was like, oh, I'm a little too provocative to be a Libra rising. But it was definitely I was reading the Gene Keys a few years back. I have the book now, but I was reading it a few years back and it, you know, one of the meditations is what were you fighting? What are you fighting for? And like a warrior without a cause, it isn't a noble warrior anymore. And so I've really allowed that to like, and I think so much of the deconditioning of like my crown is like getting comfortable saying I don't know, and it's like I can feel myself revving up, and then it's like, you know what?
You almost never know.
You almost never.
Right, those of us with individual definition, if it's predominant, if it's there, all it has to do is all you need are individual gates.
Mm-hmm.
If you have one, we don't know. We got
Yeah.
to get on with this business of thinking we know, unless we know. In which case, for me, it'll be a response. For you, it'll show up just by via timing, and someone will be empowering your energy out of you. And for me, it'll be a response to something someone says, right, or something like I'm a generator. Um, to just respond into the thing, but we don't know until that time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know until it's by virtue of this magic moment because of this 5720, the definition you have.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like a cat on a hot tin roof because it's so right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
right now. I'm guessing you hear everything too. That just sort of goes on around you. Is that true?
Oh yeah, I see and hear everything. It's actually I'm extremely. I really, I got my first ever. Okay, I guess my second human design reading. He really laid into the 5720 in a way that I really appreciate it. Because I mean, it's my only channel, so I don't have a lot to go off of.
What did you make of this penetrating awareness of yours? Because it's the type of it's your life force that it's hard to share with anybody because you almost don't notice it yourself unless you're really paying attention. It happens so fast. This is the channel that's easy to not pay attention to because it goes so quickly. Mind gets away, drowns out this splenic intuition that's profound, and suddenly in the now it's gone. It's just the stuff that you were going to do with it. Is
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, splenic awareness, I have a love-hate with it because Yeah,
And
I find that it's such a it feels very mystical. It's like one of the few things in human design that feels mystical to me. And I'm like, of course, this would be my authority. And I just sometimes wish I had anything else. But yeah, I think especially in this season of life, I'm very into the feeling of something and that first feeling. If that first feeling is a no, then it's a no. And what I'm trying to do, what I've been playing with is not creating narratives around the no, just letting it be no. It doesn't mean it's a bad place or a bad person or a bad song. It's just a no for me.
when you're the classic projector like this,
Hmm.
that would have tendencies to be quick, right? Just to always be fast. That's what 57, it's lightning fast.
Hmm.
Um, no truly is no at the time. And the thing for the splenic awareness center being your inner authority is you practice. Tressa has got a splenic inner authority, one of my students, and she has to practice doing the illogical things that the spleen gives her hits to do, just to watch where it goes. Because sometimes you can't make sense out of the first few minutes of the thing. You have to later that afternoon, something finally clicks and made sense, even though many actions spleen will ask you to do make no sense in the moment. They just
Hmm.
don't. Have you noticed this? Oh my God, it doesn't make sense. It's so fast. I have to do this. I have to brush my teeth now. I have to what? I have to, it's like, because spleen keeps saying, I have to turn left. The directions say turn right. It's like you keep getting this intuition to
To just
do.
do. um,
And it
I'm
shows up too.
I'm working on that. I'm working on just trusting the first thing that comes up.
Mhm.
It is hard, naturally so, and I think also it's hard to really draw awareness to it, and you have to be so in tune with your body and I have a lot of like the death gates, and so I'm like,
Totally deaf. Yeah, dude, you're stubborn, you're deaf. So you've driven your share of boyfriends crazy over your life, here and there. Is that true?
that's why I don't have any.
But I mean, and they've had to tell you that, or others have had to. You yourself, it doesn't fully make sense to you, although I bet you caught a glimpse of it from time to time.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's not you drove them crazy, it's that they weren't open and receptive and didn't recognize who they thought they were supposed to be falling in love with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So they're
100%.
they're the dummies in a way, but
I know,
it's
I'm so magical. No, they've all fallen in love. It just didn't work. But I think, which I've been really interested also is something new that I've found out is about basically the 6-2 being sort of like this cosmic keeper for 5-1s. And it's like have the power to save them or crucify them. I'm like, oh, that is such an interesting. I haven't seen any other small tidbit like that about any of the other profiles except for those two. And I thought that was
you guys share really the foundational transpersonal you and the 5-1. I
mhm,
mean,
mhm.
incredible binary there. It's really the 5 and the 6 as this transitional binary in the hexagram. If you've been looking long enough, you start to recognize all stories seem to lead back to those dang 6 lines of a hexagram. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
they
for sure.
there's a lot of always leading back, even going around the wheel. You can't help but to leave the 6 and go back to the first line of the next one in line, as you go around the
Mhm,
wheel. Everything's about these hexagrams. And so they're both the foundational left angle profiles, and the fifth line is doing its share of attracting society, and the sixth line is doing its share of validating that.
yeah,
They, they need each other desperately. They can't exist separately. One would fly off the handle, and one wouldn't necessarily get enough done. Ish. Yeah,
yeah,
because that's you sometimes. Sometimes you think you're not getting enough done, and that's not necessarily true. Sitting quietly, like when you think you have something to do, is really difficult.
yeah,
And but spleen will keep telling you, and you were like bringing awareness to it. The awareness is in the repetitive staring at it. Seeing it kills it is the maxim, and the
hmm,
listening to the spleen, like the maximum of law, and listening to the spleen, like watching it do the thing as it does the things. That's your child. That's your 4-year-old. You
hmm,
know, 4-year-old Crystal, who was innocent and honest and did what was true. Crystal wanted to jump over there. Crystal jumped over there. Crystal wanted to open her mouth. She did. She wanted to, whatever, that was
Yeah.
what the 4-year-old, innocent. Still, that means they're perfect. That means everything that the spleen does when your awareness is watching it, what it's watching is the correct form of its 4-year-old self. So these maxims to take forward, these planted truths that you take with you as you're looking through this design and you're looking through yourself and you keep watching the things with all the mystery that goes along with it, is to recognize that over time, as you keep doing that, these maxims come true. The kid is always right. So when the spleen says, when the spleen asks you to be like the squirrel in that movie Up, where everything could make it dart, you know what I mean? It was really the dogs that did the darting, but it was because of a squirrel. And you can get used to that's the spleen relative to the slowness of your mental awareness. Mine too, all of us. The mind can't move as fast as the spleen. Spleen's lightning fast. And so it just can't be as fast as it. So to obey her is to sometimes agree to look like a fool. I mean, that's if someone's looking. Mostly it's like you look at your own self. You're like, oh my God, I think I look stupid. You know what I mean? Because I was just going here and now I'm putting this down and now I'm doing this. And if you allow yourself to pick an hour on any given day to let that happen, just like you would experiment the first times you do yoga and you had to experiment with skill and all
Yeah.
work, all of it. If you give yourself an hour, schedule it, even do whatever. But when you're in the mood, suddenly you'll do it. You'll feel called. Second line gets called, and suddenly a natural brilliance will show up, and you'll start noticing. Oh my God! When I notice it and I just do it, yeah, it's crazy. Oh my God, I feel stupid. Why did I just do this? Why did I just do that? Or sometimes it'll be like, oh my God, everything's lining up. I get it. Sometimes it'll just be, I'm still confused. I mean, somehow I see it. I get it, but that's because you're waiting for ordering to take place, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the 4-year-old is always right and it's always giving us the truth, that means no matter what she says, that's your truth. And you'll be able to spot it because you seem to have energy to do the thing. Even when spleen says to do the thing, whatever it is, and it suddenly re-navigates you in that moment because it's moment to moment splenic awareness, what you're really doing is you're listening to the child that says it's okay to do this, and then you, the grown-up adult in the adult body, is saying, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do this. And you watch it keep unfolding, and you take stock at the end of any day that you do that, or at the end of the period, where did you go from here to there? Spleen is constantly telling you everything. Don't go in there. Do go in there. You know what I mean? Stop talking to this person. There's something behind you. Look. You know what I'm saying? It's like constantly giving you all of this moment to moment awareness. And that awareness isn't just survival, even though the spleen is all about survival, because it's sitting inside the rest of a body graph that struggles for purpose, provokes and struggles for a deep purpose that has a natural brilliance that wants to start, hungers to start, and is willing to do just about anything to get it started as soon as it's in the mood. This is as soon as it's in the mood. So that's why these lines, you read these lines in the book, you read the exaltation and detriment, and you recognize, oh my God, I waffle between these two things. And the more you watch it, the more you stop waffling so much, like back and forth, and you find one that's more home to you. Sometimes it will be home for you to just be stubborn. And it's just the way that the stubbornness to insist and maintain one's own position. A vocal thing,
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with being stubborn as long as I have a noble cause to fight for. That has been my work. It's like, do not just fight for things. But I think the second one, my friggin' gate 39 has also just been the provocateur is just such a thing. It's very interesting energy to live with. I'm like, oh no.
I love the provocateur.
Yeah, it's very
because the provocateur is constantly poking at the thing. It is aiding and abetting the struggle of the purpose, and the fighter who struggles for the purpose, who's willing to come out swinging, spiritually swinging. That's what 38 does. 38 is the spiritual swinger. You know what I mean? bat with, and it's always up to bat in that way.
It's always
And this 57 and the 51. Actually, I moved on from the 39 a little too quick. Do you want to do
no,
you guys?
that's fine. I feel like I've done a lot of
Yeah.
work
So
around.
always read the 2 lines and by yourself, and you'll
Mhm.
on it. You have splenic awareness. You can't quite lie to yourself. Have you noticed?
Oh yeah, no.
You're horrible at it, and you've had friends. I've been one at times to my own self where I can successfully lie to my own self for a little while, and I'll be okay. You just can't. Penetrating awareness won't allow it.
No, I can't lie to myself.
It just can't. And here's what ends up happening: if you do sort of try to go for it a little bit, you feel guilty. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If I try to lie to myself, if I feel guilty, is that what you're asking? For
yeah,
sure. And it just doesn't last. It's one
doesn't
of those
last.
things.
No, it's not. You've got.
Yeah.
I
I'm like,
it's
all
like,
right, who are we kidding here? Who are we kidding?
oh, we get it. Right.
Everybody hates that. I used to be so non-vocal about things, and that is just not me anymore. And yeah.
You're up on the roof, honey. It's time to sing because
I'm like,
knowing what you know now, the only reason you're up on the roof is because you're waiting for this process to really bring your full glory out into maturation.
right.
So we call that the Chiron return.
Yeah.
There's no date certain as it relates to when you start to really flower into this most creative self. The only thing I would obviously caution is enjoy your more solitude than not as it relates to having moved up onto the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten a handle on what this moving up onto the roof is? Because you've totally done it by now. You're there.
Oh yeah. Well, I read, I was reading and chatting with folks, and they were talking about how like people who are on the roof, I'm definitely on the roof. Like it's insane how much more social I've used to be and how that has just changed. Not only because of environment, but just like desire. But at the same time, I remember I was talking to someone a while ago, and they were a 6. I can't remember what, but they had a 6 in their profile. And he was like, the thing is, like, early 30s, you're on the roof for sure, but you'll have these crazy little moments of just like 3 energy, and you're like, no, no. And it's like, because it's kind of like reflex, you've lived your whole life like that. And so
Exactly
it's
right.
like nothing you desire, but you have these moments where, and so then you get yourself in like 3 situations with this like newly roofed 6 energy. And now it's like, it's almost like you're participating, or for me at least, I'll find myself in these like very ridiculous trial and error moments, but I'm bringing all this like wisdom to them. And it's like, well, if you have this much wisdom, why are you in this situation in the first place? It's like, because my baby 3 came back to want to play for a second, but I forgot who I was now.
Baby 3 leaves because it's in your cellular memory.
Right. The baby 3 had a
it doesn't all suck. That's where you had so much fun in 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unless you tell me all your teenage years sucked, but I don't imagine
my teenage years sucked, but not my 20s.
Okay, so somewhere in there you had a round of
We had a good time.
It's a mixing bowl. It's a mixing bowl, and it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah. It's funny. It's very funny. Like,
so something else is curious here. A couple things. I'm going to do the 51 and the 57.
Okay.
So notice something about this incarnation cross.
Mm-hmm.
It is strictly individual.
Yes.
Strictly individual. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And because it is moved out of, before it was the cross of tension. When it was in its right angle form a few days earlier, cross of tension. And then it moves into the cross of provocation because tension finally provokes. And when it's done provoking, what it finds out is individualism is the way. This cross of individualism is so heavily dependent on all 4 of these gates. 51, the shock and the warrior that will leap, it's in the second line. It's a hermit. It doesn't know that it's gonna leap. In fact, leaping is strange. So when your third line process constantly bumping into stuff, you were getting into leap overload. Oops. oops again, oopsie daisy again, into it you went.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would be curious for you to take stock and look back and wonder to yourself, how many times did you know the outcome? Because that's what penetrating awareness does. You asked about mystical qualities. I'm going to point to 3 or 4 of them in a minute. We
Mm-hmm.
get so the calling of 51 is, I got a lot of things to say about your chart. The variables indicate that I need to look at, just as I look at these variables here, I'm not going to say why, too complex, but as I look at your incarnation cross lines, when I look at a second line, I have to read the first and the second. I
Mm-hmm.
have to read on these unconscious ones, I have to read the bottom binary is the thing, even though you're a second line, clearly. So when I look at 57, 2, I've got the cleansing, the clarity to establish proper values and ideals must be accompanied by a resolute determination. It's this perfected timing to have an intuition that once called, right? Second lines get called into action.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a bubble. They have a shell. They're even a little bit shy. I don't know. I don't want to know. Don't try to influence me. That's what the second line says.
Right.
All of, all of these gates are individual, and it just came off this basic incarnation cross to struggle, this cross of tension. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's all totally individual. It wants to be left alone. Don't try to influence me. Your one channel is individual. Don't try to influence me. Your gate 43, that is the brunt of your insight. It's the only fit line you have, and that's why I'm bringing it out, says, don't try to influence me. And gate 14 says, you're in my way. I'm trying to get stuff done. Don't get in my way and don't try to influence me. These things are all saying this, and there's a lot of first line and second line action in all of these gates, is the thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's 57. I love this. And you'll look at it and you'll see the second line part of it, but it comes from a place of confusion, the possibility of intuition penetrating the inner meaning of now. And it's so possible and it's so present that it can get confusing. It's like a little laser beam. You penetrate into the now. And it seems mystical because it comes out of your unconscious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a second line. It extra doesn't know. I'm a 2-4. I don't know.
Right.
I get lost in the middle of conversations, and I'm right-minded. You're at least strategic, so you can focus in and sort of stay on track a little better than I.
Yeah.
It helps if you have kids to be strategic, trust me. Uh, um, and so, but with all of that going on, it's the second line needs to be called. It's a deep, deep calling. And
Yeah.
57 potential to basically do this cleansing starts out at a place where there is confusion because it's so fast. Does that
Mhm.
sound true?
Yeah, I think going back to what you said about how many times have you done something while knowing the outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that is totally, even today, I met a person and we were talking about, it was his birthday, it's Scorpio season, whatever. And I just looked at him and I was like, alchemy. And he was like, how do you know? I just started a business and it's about alchemy. And the name of his thing was alchemy. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I channel things sometimes. Like I don't just like sometimes the
That stuff. Everything vibrates, right? So even
Mhm.
the color of something that was written somewhere has a contrasted color from what it's written against, right? Black ink
Yeah.
on white paper, right? That's a vibration. That is
Mhm.
moving. You can call all of it sound. 57 is the gate of the right ear, the most intuitive. It's the
Right.
gate that literally takes in the now all the stuff, but it's also not always very deep. I mean, because it's superficial. It's taking it all in right now.
Right
Um,
now. Yeah.
that's what gives its incredible potential for intuitive clarity in the first line and the second line of this gate. Um,
Mhm.
this this possibility that there's a possibility that at times confusion overpowers the tuition, and there's this other possibility that the confusion just is the wonder of the intuition while you're receiving it. It's like I thought
Mhm.
that was confusing, but here I am in this glorious moment. Those are the moments that the goosebumps rise up on your skin because that happens to you over and over again. I mean, I don't know how often, but it
Yeah.
happens.
Just like when I'm just more intuitively knowing something and I'm like, how in the world did I know that?
Um,
Yes.
you'll
It's
never get to answer that other than a textbook answer. Spleen told me.
Yeah.
Spleen.
Explain that.
So until it says
Yeah.
why, well, okay, well, you lost me there. No can do. I can't tell you why. You know, it just
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
And so when you get to 51, it's one of my
Mhm.
favorite because I have a 25 and most of my best friends are just over time. I've run into 51s and we
Really? Well,
off and running. You know what I mean? And it's a thing and it's always, I don't mind.
it's a thing.
It's a thing. You know, as you ponder things more and more about your chart and just your design and stuff in general, I want
Mhm.
you to recognize everywhere there's a gate in your body graph, it is dying to get across the chasm to the
Oh
other.
yeah.
All of them.
I want somebody to
All of them.
bridge it. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Please show me the other side. Right. Exactly.
Please. Electromagnetic. Come on,
Right.
give it to me.
The ones in the defined centers are always on,
Yeah.
but the ones in the open centers, they're still intermittent. They're showing up. They're never fully off. They keep just showing up, but it's more you look at it more intermittently, like it's shows up randomly because they're in an open center. There's no consistent life force activating
Right.
it. So you look at it like dormant, but it's there. It's totally there, and it's constantly being triggered. So in
Mhm.
any given week, yeah, it's dormant, but I got if you're not aware, all you'll remember is like when someone who doesn't know their design, all they really remember is, I don't know what you're talking about, dormant 5 times this week. I got kicked in the ass by this feeling. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, if I count up all the seconds in a week, we got what, a million of them. And so you're saying for about, 5 of them, you notice something. See what I'm saying? So
Mhm. Mhm.
on that is the
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
51 line 2, withdrawal. So this is your instinctive awareness of the warrior to know, I don't know if I want to be called into this. I can't
Mhm.
tell if I want. They're going to have to knock on my window a little harder. They're going to have to break down my barriers to union. Second lines have built-in barriers to union. It's guaranteed. You don't have a gate 59, but which is good in a way because now I can call it out. That second line is strictly shyness as it relates to your communion with the other.
How would 59 change it if I had gate 59?
Well, because 59 might be in a different planet in a different gate, a different line.
Okay.
You have to read them both. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a 59, so I can read my profile as my bonding strategy all day long without having to worry about reading the other line. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
I get that.
So this withdrawal is one of two things, and I actually wrote a quick note here. It's this where's a 51 to the recognition of the shock. So it's not that 62 can't leap. Of course it leaps. Of course it has a warrior spirit. Of course it gets all excited in the moment. What it needs to learn to do is to recognize its melancholy. The
Mm.
melancholy is there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Next, there's nothing new under the sun. What's going to excite my spirit? It wants spirit. 25. This
Yeah.
part of its love of itself, which is really the love of all things, including you, and that's where it wants to be. It wants to be all wrapped up in 25, just like my 25 wants to go shock it.
Like,
Let's go,
please.
let's go do the thing. And I know I want to do that. I know that's who I'm not. So what have I had to learn? I've had to learn, well, when the timing is right, sometimes it is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
timing is right. The energy was in the sky. I bumped into someone in the crowd. They have a 50, whatever it is. In response, the timing was right. So I become wise on when the timing is right to then be the thing. And it's the same with you on the other side of all those gates. It's not that you're never supposed to be it. It's the wanting of it that becomes who you're not. So you
Yeah.
get watching that more and more, and it's like it really richens up your experiment. That's why I said your chart is so dense. Every center has got stuff to contemplate about what we just said.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them would, everyone but the top one has, well, actually, two of them have only one, but the rest of them have multiples.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's
Um,
true.
to reject withdrawal possible. Yes. So sometimes you'll reject the withdrawal, and that's when the splenic intuition says, I knew it. I should have withdrawn. It's the ego's wisdom to know it should have withdrawn. Think about the wisdom. The coward runs away, and the ego can't bear to just be the coward. We know that. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The wise man retreats. You know, you're in America. Are you in the United States? I assume you are. Sound it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, then you grew up with in school and right and George Washington and the Revolution and all that stuff, right? We're sort of glad they won. I'm happy about that. That guy won being the best retreater in the world.
Mm.
So to this day, people look at what George Washington do to constantly retreat. So withdrawal,
I have
embrace withdrawal.
I have
If
a
you don't
question.
know it.
So if I don't have a triangle, for like an exaltation for either for like 51,
Sure.
are both
You're
are both
walking between the two, figuring out as yourself through your strategy and authority, where do you
which
seem to
one?
rest more? Is it
Yeah.
going to blend? There'll be a blend. Where does that blend rest?
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Whereas
everything
if
has
I have a triangle, it's like a
it's
little bit more fixed.
yeah, totally fix it. Look at a blend like the coffee is just right, just a little bit of sugar, a little bit of cream, and then when
Yeah.
it's totally melted, it's like no cream, jet black, or way too sweet and light.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Interesting. All right.
So the mystical part of all of this gets into what the second line pulls.
Mm,
The second line is the magician. The second line is not the alchemist. That's a third line phase of alchemy, but it's the second line that can be called into the alchemy once it's been alchemized or as it sees it. It's a second line that sees the magic that no one else noticed suddenly. Oh my God. And then they are called. It's the second line that doesn't know why it's looking at what it's looking at and doesn't know why it just suddenly got talented at this thing. I guess I have a knack for that. It's a second line that's constantly telling itself, I guess I have a knack for that sometimes, but I don't want to lean on it too much in case I don't, because you can't tell. The depth isn't there. Second lines aren't there for depth until they are called. They're there to be wide and expansive across a surface that is ready to be really talented at any given thing. And it looks like, oh my God, that girl is sharp. Look at she just picks that up. She got a handle on that. It's a natural talent to suddenly do. You've already listened to this a bunch of times, to do what the natural does. The natural
mhm,
doesn't why it does what it does.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
natural at it. Well, I'm a dude, so I'll give the example of Mike Tyson. You've heard Mike Tyson say certain things now and again. He's
mhm.
a little natural. He doesn't know why he do what he do. He go in and punch. And that's why he can say things like everyone's got a plan until I punch him in the face.
Right.
That's what the natural says, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't know why it's true. I don't know what his design is, by the way, but
Mhm.
good example. I
Right.
think he's a manifester, but he's got to
Is
be a generator. He's got to be, but he's got this manifester quality.
Huh. I would be curious to know. I
I
don't
think
know.
I'm 50-50 on generator manifest with him, but I want to know too.
Oh, we'll look it up.
So,
We'll look it up.
what moves Crystal? What's moving you, Crystal? What is this movement? This movement becomes the second line must deeply feel called. Look at calling like the most profound thing ever.
Yeah.
It's a profundity that can't get met. When I first found human design, I was called into it.
Hmm.
Called. I mean, I just called into it. It's
Yeah.
like there's a little freak inside of the second line because it doesn't know when it's super freaky is about to fly. It's not
Hmm.
in charge of the call. It receives the call. And because all of your sun earths are all individual, it guarantees that calling is in a mutative pulse. It's about a mutative calling that is shocking, that seems to penetrate the now, that gives you goosebumps because, oh my God, I see the thing. And it is a warrior spirit brewing up. That withdrawal of the warrior is knowing when to withdraw. It doesn't say that I also don't know when to not withdraw, the opposite. It's
Hmm.
no one stays withdrawn. It just knows when to come out through the act of being called. Look at it like a mystical process. It brings out your magic, and it's where your energy is. When you are called, your energy abounds. you still are within your projector frame. We have to talk about that. But I mean, your energy abounds.
Mm-hmm.
You don't mind up the next day with the same bounce in your step to do the thing because you're called.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know those times. Do you have that time happening now in your life or anything reasonably close to it? Do you feel called into things right now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely yoga. I'm also leaving to go to Costa Rica for 2 months in like a week and a
You
half.
do all that. Yep.
I'm going to be teaching shadow work to folks in a retreat, and it feels very much like a calling. Like I, um, I'm very hesitant because most of my jobs have been through like invitation. And it's always felt really good. Like somebody's always sent me something and they're like, you would be perfect for this. Or I saw this, thought about you, all the things. Or somebody's just offered, met me and they're like, oh, let's do a thing. Sure. But this, an ad came up on my Instagram. They were looking for facilitators. And I was like, ugh, this isn't an invitation. Like, I don't know. I've never done a thing without an invitation. But
It's an invitation.
yeah,
It's
I took
a
it.
blown out invitation because you're splenic.
Yeah.
If the
And it
invitation
felt
doesn't
right.
need to mature into a sense of a feeling, it's better if it does. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But some invitations will come splenically like this because it's not so much an invitation at the moment, although it is inventory. That is inviting you. Hey, click on me. Really, it's about recognition. The invitation is just to finesse the mind to understand that, oh my God, I'm the recognizer of all things generated and manifested, including in myself.
Right. And so the second half, so I sent in my lesson plan or my workshop plan or whatever. And I chatted with her and she was like, well, let's do essentially a second interview, which is basically how about you teach your workshop on a webinar? And I was like, there it is. I'll have my moment for recognition. And if they recognize me as who they want, then I'll go forward. And so we did the webinar and it was perfect because it was almost like the universe. I knew I needed this thing to like fully snap it. I was like, I need to have some part of this that's like either an invitation or like really the recognition of it. And I was like, how would they recognize me if I just apply? But anyways, the webinar happened. It went great. As soon as she was like, oh my God, we want to have you. I would love to have you here. So yeah, definitely a calling, definitely the recognition piece that sometimes I feel like for me, the recognition is even more important than the invitation. And that's what I see with other projectors as well. I'm like, honestly, drop the invitation as long as you've been recognized and like very specifically seen for you. And they're like, wow, you were doing this, and that, and that. I'm like,
yeah, I dropped the invitation. I dropped the invitation when I'm reading. I mean, I say it just to keep it in because it's the classical knowledge. But at the end of the day, it's about recognizing you just got recognized. That can come from a nod across the room. Hey, dude. Oh yeah. Boom. I'm here. Right. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's your recognition that there is a one-on-one energy or a group energy. It's not zero groups, but you tell me your experience. As soon as it is group, too much group, that's a lot of group, and that comes in a lot on the projector. Or do you struggle through that just fine? How does that work out for you? You're designed to struggle in that potentially. So tell me, what's it like when it's more than one person? Most projectors say, it gets a little bit much.
When I'm spending time with too many people, like if I'm in a group, I really let my projector aura speak for me and like my two energy speak for me. So if I'm in a group, I actually fall back a lot. And I almost feel like two's energy is like a siren call. And whoever's supposed to answer it will just come up or start speaking to me.
That's a great way to put it. So you've heard before the distinction between these two projection lines, the 2 and the 5. So the 5th line, everyone's projecting upon it, but it's attracting it.
Yeah, we love it. They're seducing people to seduce them.
Yes, and vice versa. And sometimes they are seduced, but they're still seducing them to seduce them.
Exactly.
Right. But the second line is just a radio station pumping out a signal. It has no idea if the rest of the world, it's the resistance. Hi, this is John Connor from the Resistance. Is anyone listening? And it doesn't know it's broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, "Hi, this is John Connor from my sleep, so I don't really know I'm doing this, but that's you can't tell what's pulling in, but all the cars going by are picking up the radio signal, and it
Yeah.
causes them to veer in once in a while. Hey, you might have this thing. Hey, and wherever there's fifth lines in your body graph is where ultimately that will get projected upon you as something you can do. And I notice your body graph only has one fifth line. Whenever
Yeah.
I whenever I see one line or zero lines, I know to talk about them. Um,
Hmm.
43.5. You have no fourth lines, do you? Nope.
No.
That's rare. Pretty rare. I mean, only once in a while. I can't remember the last time I saw a chart that didn't have all the lines represented at least once.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
yep. So I was going to ask you a question about that. Actually, no fourth line. Um, is it hard to be friendly? Do you find you've got a checklist before you're willing to start being friendly?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, not me before. I'm friendly, right? Hey, you want to be my friend? You're talking to me? Good. I'm talking back. It's like I'm indiscriminate. I get in trouble that way.
No, I think actually I used to be a lot more friendly. And I'm friendly once you start talking to me, but I don't believe in being friends with people who I haven't had a one-on-one with. And really multiple one-on-ones, but at least that first, because I just feel like my body just says yes or no to people really quick. And it's the spleen. My spleen is like yes or no, yes or no. Um,
And it
yeah,
can be no now and yes 10 minutes later.
that
It's
is
not up to
true.
you.
That
It's
is
not up
true.
to you. Right.
Sometimes what I'm not struggling, but what I'm paying attention to is the yeses and the nos as they switch.
Yeah. And don't let your mind be like, well, I said no already. And it's not, well, shut up, mind.
My brain will do that sometimes.
Yeah.
It'll do
Yeah.
that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Right.
And I do get attached to I get attached to my no. So it's interesting, but friendly, I'm pretty friendly and I'm pretty charming. And I think my friendliness works best when I'm able to like utilize my six energy, and essentially be people's, and like my 13, I'm really into my 13. Um, because yeah, if I'm able to just be the listener and like offer
You
some
got a
sort of
22. You're
wisdom.
born to be told secrets and listen and have listening because your projector aura penetrates the other. It actually causes them to turn towards you to some way, shape, or form, or have a hard time getting away at times. Sometimes there's an important conversation and the other person is like, I want to be done, but the tractor beam is holding me here, and you'll see that in them. You by now have seen that in them. Is that true?
People, yeah, oh yeah. People, they used to make a joke because my like name is the Crystal Verse, and people that see me, they're like, "Oh my God, I got stuck in the Crystal Verse. I couldn't get out." It's so funny. People literally are like, "Oh, I was over here stuck in the Crystal Verse. I don't know what was going on."
your,
And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
your
Well,
aura penetrates.
yeah, for sure.
Channel
Laser
is this
beam.
whole penetrating awareness. It's called the channel of the brain wave. It's a deep
Mhm.
intuitive clarity in the now as a potential. And the more awake you are to your strategy and authority in just this projector way, the better off you are. It's just a design to do that. And the
Mhm.
crystal makes sense. So that just also means you get to now start to spot the timing of when to let the other off the hook as well.
I do that. I'll be
Yeah,
on. You can tell when somebody's like trying to get out, and I'm like,
right. And
"Go."
it's not personal.
No,
Did it
no.
used to be sometimes? You'd see people trying to sort of slink away, and maybe it didn't feel so good the younger you were at times, or because this
I
will be
mean,
an evolution.
I think naturally, I just want people to like always be enamored and stuck talking to me. That's just my ego. I'm like, I just want people to be like, wow, wow. But I think at this point, I am more solid in my design than I've ever been. That I'm so aware of like social cues and when and really trying to figure out when an invitation has like been expired and it's like all right,
Right.
this is done now.
That's a good
um
way to put it. When has
yeah,
it expired?
invitations expire for sure.
I think
And being okay with that.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
You always have that bonds made and broken aspect of the third line as something in your collective psyche that's always with you, that is you're aware of. And it becomes the wisdom in the sixth line because this role model thing is a big deal. We're all
It's
looking towards it, and you don't know what it is yet. I still have a hard time describing it, but I know it when I see it. Every once in a while, I see that role model energy, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what it is, and it's stunning. And the third line's bonds made and broken is always a thing to recognize. It doesn't mean they need to stay broken. In fact, I don't need to break them at all. It's not personal. I just need to break it for now.
Mm,
Yeah, it's just like, well,
yeah. I think a big conversation that I have two friends who are both I have a lot of 6-2 friends, or at least I had a lot of 6-2 friends. Anyways, and a big thing that it was an aha moment, and I shared it with them because I think innately anybody with a 6 line, but especially 6-2s, I feel like they know they have this greatness that is waiting for them, the potential for this greatness, and so they hold themselves to the standards of that greatness, and inevitably continuously fall short of the glory because they're still in their 3, and it's like you have to go through all of the mess to become the role model. You can't just immediately hold yourself to this certain integrity because you'll either start to look like a hypocrite, or you'll continuously disappoint yourself for not living up to this potential, not realizing that the way you become the role model is going through the messiness first. So
and the
being
way to guarantee the role model doesn't show up is to allow the hypocrisy to become a way.
exactly, you have to go through it to get there, and that's been a huge thing for me. Is like I have a lot of bouts of like a lot of discussions around integrity, and I have to realize that the integrity that I'm seeking, I'm still building. But it's like I can feel it in myself. So sometimes when I can't live up to that just yet, I'm disappointed. But I'm like, this is the way you get there, and kind of like separating those two. Like you will be there, but you are here now. And so yeah, that's been a huge part of like understanding this phase that I'm currently in.
So that fifth line, where people you let people project upon you here, let them call that general out in you because it's in the truth. It's in your Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
So the longest one, this is the farthest out planet, obviously, and Grandma Pluto is there to tell you the truth. That's all, your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so this progression, which is the fifth line, it doesn't even have a subheading. It starts out right away at birth, but step by step adaptation to relationships which hinder breakthrough um, with practical actions, but don't ultimately jeopardize it. Meaning, I'm in a tribe, I have to have relationships. Some of them are hindering my breakthrough, but I'm not letting them jeopardize my ultimate breakthrough. It's a progression through
Mm-hmm.
the resistance into the breakthrough. You're always moving through a bit of resistance into the breakthrough, is what this fifth line does. And that breakthrough, you're going to love this. The gift for knowing when unique insight can actually be shared and done with effectively. I added the done with part. It's not written
Mm-hmm.
there. Yeah, because that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's like that it can be shared and done with effectively, and it's an individual gate. So what's it looking to do? It's looking to empower. It wants to empower the other. It's in the channel of structuring, which brings efficiencies. This thing is all excited every time it came up with its new aha of something that can get done. Oh, let's do it this way, or whatever the thing is. You always have the greatest new idea, bottom line. That's what I'm getting at. Because it keeps showing up. And then the sadness shows up and you're like, I was supposed to be able to hold on to that. And
Mm-hmm.
your variables let me know that you're a walking pile of, oh my God, I'm great. Oh, I lost it. Oh my God, I'm great. Oh, I lost it because you didn't write it down or whatever. It's
Yeah.
about yourself because it's worth kicking yourself. Don't kick yourself, really. Do it just for fun. Because the truth of the matter is, with this variable, if there was a pool of secretaries, say 4 or 5 of them following around with notebooks and tape recorders every single day, they'd walk away with an hour's worth of awesome nuggets that rolled out of your mouth.
Mm.
You already know this, though.
I know. Yeah. My friend reflects this back to me often. I was talking to her and she was like, you just sometimes say the most profound things. She's like, you're so underrated. I was like,
Underrated, yes. Resolute determination. And I wrote this thing. What is it? This natural brilliance attracts and benefits. The hunger to start all of that. The knower that needs to know. I wrote that note down for myself.
the
Yeah,
knower
because
that needs to know.
right, the struggle and the purpose fulfill the occult knowledge of 61 through the purpose of getting stuff started, gate 53, that fulfills this natural vortex of purpose that brings you depth and brings you this closeness and brings you exactly what is it your cross needs to bring you.
Mm,
The cross
okay.
that you're bound to says ultimately it's like I struggle and fight for purpose and I poke at things and I actually get in close. I can smell it. I can almost taste it. And I'm gonna provoke you and I'm not gonna listen to you at the same time. And sometimes I'm gonna leap into the thing and you're gonna have to follow the way I get called into things. And you sort of better love me that way because I'm determined and I'm not gonna put up with it if you don't. And if I do put up with it when you don't, it won't be for very long and I won't last basically. This is your incarnation cross because those who love you have to allow it in. They have to be like, oh, this is great, even when they hate it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It sounds kind of chaotic, honestly. The whole thing sounds so chaotic when you say it that way.
How did it feel?
Chaotic.
You notice it that way?
I do. I notice I'm very passionate. Um, People describe me as passionate. Some describe me as intense. There is a
You
light
are
part.
intense. You're just a focused freaking thunder beam into everyone. You are intense. That's what second lines get that way. 5720 is that way. The projector aura all encompasses that.
Mm. Yeah, projectors are intense. That's a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
projectors do have intense energy. Um, I think I experience it that way. I think it's very like it's not my way or the highway energy, but it is very much like I think even that fighter, that 38 also is really hinged on integrity as well. Um, and just like being right. But I think my six line really and like mountains and just like that mountain environment and mountain way of being is very like you got to get out of this gunk. I feel like sometimes the intensity and the fight and the provoking, it feels obviously there's a way to maturely hold all of this, but I think me being who I've been, which is, a young like a, person in their 20s and in their teens, like a lot of these energies have manifested in like the most immature ways, like the provoking and the shocking and the fighting. So right now I'm really leaning on this like six energy and this mountain energy to like sort of I'm excited. I'm happy about the roof. Put it like that. It's really allowing me to see the forest for the trees in this way that, yeah, I really feel like I was lost in the salt, like caught in it. And I still
Yeah.
feel like I can be caught in it,
Yeah.
but there's a certain distance that's starting to set in for sure.
Now's a good time to repeat the maxims that I talked about. I called something else the axioms or whatever. These forces that I said the kid is always right, and seeing it kills it or fixes it, or seeing it aligns you. So
Mm,
that just the kid is always right. The kid is always right. 100%. The kid is always right, and you have to keep seeing it because if you don't, it'll kill you. But when you see it, you start to kill that conditioning. Um, because you keep looking at it. I'm so thrilled that you keep sort of watching this thing. Um,
mm.
Gate 18 and 48. So the 48 is the one that really speaks the most because it's pointing out a defined center. And boy, does it love the idea of being richly talented and suddenly just showing up with the thing. Do you play an instrument, by the way?
I started playing the harp, but I stopped taking lessons.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that something I should be focused on because it's I would be
Something,
talented?
whatever it is, let it bring depth. Let it bring depth and something that has some, at times, mindless repetition. Repetition's your friend in this stream right here, with the spleen being defined. Uh, uh, Identifying with something that you can sort of repeat and do over again is a beautiful thing. Gate 35 in your body graph, however, sometimes make, and 56, frankly, get you a little bit stimulated as it relates to seeking change. So
Hmm.
sometimes at 51 is would love to jump into something new, especially if it's feeling the melancholy. Don't
Yeah.
let that get to you as it relates to, you'll find a gem or two in your life. You already have a gem or two in your life that you repeat. Is that true? What do you do that you repeat? You know,
Daily yoga.
you do it 'cause you keep getting better and better at it, and you're like a pro at it. Okay, give it to her. She'll fix that. No sweat. Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
I think it's definitely yoga. It's my daily thing.
There you go. Yeah, and you got other little things. You got little knick-knacky things that you may not even know right now until you start really thinking about it. You do every day.
Mm.
If you repeat that, you get good at. There's a couple little habits about how you drive, and maybe try and find the shortest distance from point A to point B, and you make it a little war with yourself because you're always love doing it. And if you shaved a few seconds, things like that, it'll be
Yeah,
a thing
I definitely do that.
that becomes ritual. And at gate 15, I'm talking to, and 48, and 18, and 17. I'm talking to all these gates, and it's
Mhm.
ritual. It just wants its fixedness,
Yeah,
and it wants depth. 48 it hungers for it. It's jealous for that depth.
yeah. For the
Yeah,
depth, I get that.
jealously guards its depth as it's supposed to. And then as you become more yourself, as more time keeps going by, you realize that wasn't jealous guarding. That was just, I love it. I want more depth. And
Mm,
everything starts to leave the realm of it being a hang up, and now it's just a thing.
yeah. Hmm.
Have you gotten to the point in your design yet where you laugh at yourself?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. I'm like, this is so silly. Or
Oh my
especially,
God, I did the thing. Look at me. I
yeah,
guess I have to
especially with
finish
this
it
root.
now.
I feel like that root center, or really, I think a huge one that I'm really. I was talking to someone about their design yesterday, and we were talking about the emotional solar plexus, the solar plexus, and like just even though I know that I'm taking in people's emotions and amplifying it, I still can't recognize that in the moment. It's always a reflective process where I'm like, all that confusion you were feeling, you were taking in theirs and then amplifying it. But it's like sometimes you're so in it, you can't have that objective standpoint until post. And that is something that I laugh at myself a lot about. I'm like, you
You're
did
gonna have to get used to the post thing. You're just gonna have to get used to it because the conscious gate in your solar plex is 30, and everything about this stream of awareness from 41 up to 35 is the hunger and desire for the new experience, starting with fantasy and moving up to, oh, I've been there, done that. Wow, we did it, the
mm,
completion at the end, and it's a manifesting process. It's just that drives itself into existence through the passion of desire. And 30 says, I'm a clinging fire. I had a feeling and I'm going to cling to that feeling. No, I got a feeling and I want it. I want it. You know,
yeah,
but and then the hunger assuages, right? It's like a fire. It burns out. You wake up the next day, it's like, medium, I want it. Whatever. I sort of do, but is that true?
that's so true. Wow. I need to spend more time with that gate. That's just what that told me. Yeah,
Intermittent.
I will have like the biggest, and I think, and so that's the emotional wave. But I will have just such large feelings about something and it will just run me, I mean, into a
It's like
hole.
big sky country, big feelings country, because it's
Yeah.
big.
And yeah, I read that this was one of the most desiring gates or something like that. Gate 30. It just has like
All
this.
about desire, dude, and it's the emotional process of the desire. And when you get up to 36, which you don't have, that's shocking crisis. It's because everything feels so new that it's like got the antsiness of before a first kiss. You know what I'm saying? You're
Mhm.
nervous. You're nervous as hell. I mean, everything could go wrong. I want to go. You'll change your mind. I'm staying home. All right. Crisis. Right?
Crisis. Yeah.
Crisis. You don't have the gate, but if you did, that doesn't feel
Thank
anything
God.
like gate 30. Gate 30 feels like the beginning of a crisis because it might not happen. It knows the fates can be cruel and can deny you. Gate 30 is emotionally aware that there's no guarantee that the fates will be kind to me. It's the
Mm,
fear of the fates. There's a fear in this gate that fears the fates might step in and be like, uh-oh, don't count your blessings before it's hatched. But it
yeah.
still clings to the feeling. It wants it. It wants a thing. It's desire. It's hungry and it wants to start. And 51 says I will leap, and 57 says I see what I'm leaping to, because it's like got the penetrating now, and 39 and 38, come to this realization that this fulfills my purpose. It's leading me towards something that feels
Mm,
purposeful, all to support gate 30 in that moment. Have the big feelings, but it's intermittent. You
yeah.
can't count on them. It just shows up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And then they dwindle. And it's like then I'm just left with the thoughts that I have. Like I have this
And hang
residue.
on. I lost that love and feeling. What was that song? Remember that a long time ago? We used to play it in a band. It's like that's what it feels like. It feels like I lost. I lost it
I lost it. It's gone. It's
all the
like, and
time.
I don't even know what I was like. It's like a fever dream, you know? It's like you wake up and it's like, man, you really just went through all of that, didn't you? And it's crazy because when I'm describing it to someone, they're like looking at me like, wow, that's so much. But it's like I'm past it. So I'm talking about this huge process, but from this very objective standpoint. And they're just like, wow, you did all that? I'm like, yeah, I did. But it's
You're
like they
okay.
don't
You're
see
okay.
it anymore. Yeah. But then they
Right.
don't see it anymore, because I'm like, oh, it's fine now.
Right.
And they're like,
But you don't see it too. We keep those of us unemotional, undefined emotionally, we keep losing that feeling.
I'm
It's
glad, honestly.
it's sad when we don't know that we're supposed to have it be intermittent. Because some of those feelings, no, I want it to stay, right? There's those
Mm.
ones too. I
Yeah, it is
want it to
though.
stay and it can't. It can't stay.
I've had that before. And well, then that's what kind of leads me to like, how can you maintain things? And I guess it's through devotion, not emotion.
Well, quite literally, how we maintain what we end up maintaining is our vigilance at watching it. That's what we end up maintaining. It tells us what's true. And soon Crystal realizes she'll have a not self thought that has like, I need to feel that feeling again, but you can't make it happen, because it's not up to you. It's a chemistry, right? You can sort of invoke it. I bet you can make it sometimes, but mostly it's hard.
Mostly. Yeah, it was the
Hard.
moment.
It's just not the same thing.
Yeah,
As,
it's
yeah. So we'll just stipulate to you basically you can't just make it happen. So you become the observer of, but it does keep happening. I wait for the timing of that awesome and the next new incredible feeling. When it happens, now I know I get to cling to the name of the gate is the clinging fire. The
mm,
gate of feelings. It's the gate of feelings, and because it's a profound emotional awareness that we have feelings that run real deep. They cut real deep,
yeah.
and whoever's you're around at that time or whoever you're with, like with friends or what, if they can see it or partner, however it works, they see it and you share with them because this wants to share. By the way, it's no good if it can't share. This feeling needs to be shared. That's why you always tell your friends, by the way, you never hold this feeling in. Sooner or
Mm,
later, you're hearing that. Is that true?
yeah, I don't ever hold those type. I hate when I have a big feeling and I have no one to share it with. Oh my God.
What's the keynote of the circuitry? That's collective circuitry, is it not? 30 is in the collective abstract circuitry, right?
Mm-hmm,
It's a
mm-hmm.
multiple process and it's
Yeah.
collecting. What's the keynote for the collective?
Aren't you supposed to tell your stories to
Sharing.
the collective?
It's
Yeah,
sharing.
you share it. Yeah.
It's, you know,
You tell your
well,
stories to transmute the collective into like,
yes, yes,
right.
and you're always one with a stimulating story. That's the thing. 56 gives you that. It gives you this manifested power. 56 top of your throat's conscious. You're aware of this 56. It's also in a 6 line, I think somewhere, is it? 56, 2 notes in the second line, so it totally vibrates with your calling section. And as soon as the story needs to be told, you're telling it. Because you got all kinds of story stuff to tell. 13 says all kinds of people have told you secrets, over and over again. 22 says you were basically casual enough in a social enough environment to simply sit and listen. No big deal. I can just simply sit and listen if I need to for a little while. And people feel that energy. Grace, I'm talking about gate 22, appears unconscious in you. Yeah. And so with all of these things that are listening, waiting to speak back out with a big, tall feeling, basically, that feeling needs to get shared. And when you're with the right people, you could just share it. Think of how fast everything impacts you. You're one channel that gives you the definition that determines the type and the strategy and the authority, all of it. And this one channel is so smashingly fast. It's like a freaking rifle. You know what I mean? It's like it's moving 1,000, 2,000 miles an hour. It's wicked. It's just so fast, and it's outside of your awareness because you've got this interesting mixture. You're gonna have to tell me how this worked out for you. Most of the definition as it relates to the gates in your spleen, the awareness center, are unconscious. Where is my knowing coming from? Says Crystal. Why do I know this? Where is it coming from? What do I need to keep studying? What's going on? How can I tell? How can I tell if I know what I know?
Yeah.
So if that's perfect. Now you get to know, oh, I don't need to tell how I know what I know. I need to listen to spleen, receive the call, not hang on to the clinging fire when it starts to fade, because it'll come back. Intermittent means it's always there.
Yeah.
Intermittently.
Yeah.
I exhale intermittently and I inhale intermittently. You know what I'm saying? I'm always doing it, just not all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm only doing it half the time by definition now, that right? If you really think about it. So
Right.
it shows up intermittently, and it's juicy is the thing. It's juicy. When the feeling comes, it's juicy. It's so juicy it does need to be shared.
Yeah. And then it wants to be held on to.
Say it again.
It wants to be held on to for sure.
It wants to be held on to. So now you get to watch as it starts to fade. You start to get to make peace with that process. Oh, it's fading. There it goes. Yeah, that's okay.
And it feels like clarity. I will say it feels like clarity once it fades. And I guess that's just the emotional wave. I guess I have my own mini emotional wave. You go through your wave, and then at the drop,
we're only amplifying the act of an emotional wave. It's chaotically amplified in no consistent way that allows us to have the true emotional clarity that is the chemistry process of the defined emotional solar plex. But it doesn't mean we don't know it. It doesn't mean we don't live in a sea of it and have come to be aware of what that is. We just won't have certain profundities that the emotionally defined will, of course. Nor should we. That's their job. Let them do that. At least we get to hop off the wagon. Oh, it's fading. And if we're a little sad, it fades with it. The sadness fades with it.
Yeah.
The emotional people, no. They're stuck in that wave until something happens. Yeah. So they have to go through that and recognize that becomes their power, because they come with extraordinary clarity over time. And we need that. When an emotional being gives us their clarity, we feel it, is the thing. So, how about this projector? What happened with you when you started to recognize, oh, I have this binary? First of all, you started to recognize it's always a this or a that in human design, right? This and that. It's always, there's a binary, happy or sad, melancholy or not, bitter or getting out in the world. I'm angry or I'm satisfied, whatever, all these various things. Feels good, doesn't feel good. Yes, no, right? So all these binaries are in there. The most profound binary that appears for you is the fact that moving from this feeling of a recognized accomplishment where it's good and the energy keeps showing up because the call is there, and unrecognized, this sucks, I kept trying too hard, it doesn't work, my timing's off, I'm bitter, they're a jerk, I don't feel good, bitter turns into anger, turns into all the and then sometimes wants to murder, you know what I mean, in its truest, downest, darkest, most melancholy self. So was that hard for you to hear the first time as you were, I mean, have you made peace with that? Have you recognized it as a thing so far?
Hmm. Have I made, I want to make sure I'm hearing the right
Yeah,
question.
yeah, this is a deep one.
Yeah, and you might have to repeat it again with a more condensed version. Have I
How do
made
you,
peace with?
how do you feel about this binary that moves between the joy of the successful accomplishment of things, victory, getting it done, right? Doing
Mhm.
it and being recognized for it, that particular joy, which is a chemistry,
Okay.
productive, and it's got energy, that joy that has energy, and down to they're not recognizing me, I'm not recognized, there are no invitations, this isn't right, I can't even tell if I like it. Now I'm bitter.
Yeah. That's so
Sounds like a
interesting.
good word. That's why I'm asking you if you got over the fact that it's not a fun word, I guess would be the simple way to
So
ask.
my relationship, this may be a little long-winded, but my so for a while, not a yeah, for a while, I found myself um really revering the generator's process, like sacral's process, because it felt like they were built to win. They were built for alignment because there's so many tools for generators to utilize to be in alignment. It's like you're just responding, like there's so many things to respond to, and all you're looking for is that excitement. And if for some reason you can't find it, you have this sacral messenger, this divine GPS that's like, And so I was like, wow, I feel like the world was like made for generators to win. And lastly, like the frustration aspects, so many other of the not self emotions at first seemed so retroactive, like so reactive, essentially. Like there was nothing
Yeah,
in the moment
yeah.
that was allowing them to know. Whereas frustration is something that you usually experience in the moment while you're trying to make something happen. But
Oh yeah,
bitterness is once it's happened. It's a reaction. Disappointment is a reaction. Anger is a
right,
reaction.
right.
But I had this moment the other day, right, where I realized you don't need a whole tablespoon of bitterness to taste bitter. Bitterness, the tip of the tongue, just the tiniest bit you can taste.
You can
And it
taste
was
it.
and it
You
was
can't
quick.
miss it. You
It
can't
was
miss it.
yeah. And so I realized because so much of the bitterness that I had experienced came post my learning about human design,
Right.
I kind of saw it as this thing that, oh, this is the reflective process. Like, oh, and now I'm bitter 3 years later, or now I'm bitter now. But I'm in real time, in a situation where I started to get a hint, oh, bitter. The whole flavor wasn't bitter, but I
Right.
realized there was a hint, oh, bitter popping up. And
That's all
I
you
was,
need.
oh, this is happening in real time. So,
Right. It does
granted,
happen. They all happen in real time.
it
Yeah.
does, but in an earlier time. It
Mhm.
wasn't something that I had to wait a long time for. And it was confusing at first because I entered into this situation, one half of the situation by design, by invitation, very clear invitation and a lot of recognition. But I realize, or at least for me, I feel as though when I'm in relationship with people, work, platonic, romantic, whatever, there needs to be invitations to shift relationship. Just because you were invited into one faucet of like friendship doesn't mean
You're
the
invited into the
invitation
next thing.
naturally bleeds
Right.
over into work.
Right.
There
Right.
needs there's a whole that process needs to happen for every avenue. So I made a little bit of peace with it. I still think a lot of bitterness and like hinges from not being chosen, which I think hits a specific wound. I think for most people, because if you're not recognized, and if you're not recognized, essentially that means you weren't chosen for it.
I see where part of this wound is, by the way.
Where do
It's
you
real
see it?
obvious. It's in the uh strategic variable um color.
Oh,
It's
sure.
in that motivation, which is desire.
Desire. Yeah.
powerful. Desires, it's a strong, strong force. And did you learn much about it? That's a desire to do what? It's a desire to lead.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's more than just lead. It wants to smash through the thing, get this
Mhm.
party going. It wants to lead not just to victory, it wants to lead to absolute success. And it wants to lead everyone else there too. Your whole cross is about empowering the other. Every gate, every individual gate says, I empower the other.
Mhm.
I am fulfilled through my empowerment of the other. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the sharing. It's just like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing and it's empowering them and they're doing it too. That's empowering them. That's changing them. Really, it's mutating and empowering the other. So this is something that's
Mm.
always going to happen. Desire, guarantees, and mandates. You're hungry for it. In fact, it's this desire that feeds the feelings because this is below the line. So this is happening first. It's
Mm.
essentially before the gate action is really going on. So you just this desire is just it's powerful. I have it as my motivation, and I just want to get
Mhm.
out there. I want to fix it. I want to do the thing. Let's get the thing done. What are we going to fix? I want other people to be fixed. Let's make sure everyone knows, right? I
Yeah.
desire the lead.
I listened to a podcast and it said for non-sacrals, but especially projectors, the way to know if an invitation, if you have desire and motivation, the way to know that an invitation is correct for you is if they immediately invite you into a position of leadership, and you feel like expansive in it. And
Yeah,
I thought that was
you're
big.
about to get something important, purposeful that will meet your purpose. So it's got to be human. It's got to be oriented towards something higher vibe. Low vibe
Mhm.
stuff does not exist in the nine-centered being. It
No.
can't. And not and it well, it can, it's just that it kills them early. You know, it does, it do, it that's what it do. And if you it's true. And so I can see that desire actually working out just like that. It's
Mhm.
that would take in, and if not leadership, it's just like where you just recognize, oh, that's the direction for me too. And you'll naturally move into like, even if you're not leading a bunch of people, you'll still be out front sort of in your own creative second line way, the natural. That
Yeah, and I think it's what I turn into the observed. That's like my there's this thing observer and observed, and I was read about it, and I was like, oh,
yeah, no, you very much turn into the observer. You people see you as active. Oh, this gal
yeah,
gets out. She does things and she's strategic. She figures it out. Oh, she's good at well, she likes to get the thing done. She let's project upon I want to talk about that. What's that one thing they truly are projecting on big time, that fifth line? They're
okay,
projecting, yeah, so they're projecting on all your second lines that you're going to do something great for them in a sense because they think you have a little talent towards something or they're not sure. They
hmm
like to look at you because they think you're a shiny little creature. Maybe you dust off well. That's what goes on with a second line. It's always looked at. But 53.5 says progression, and it's the gate of breakthrough and insight. It's the structuring of insights into sudden new knowings designed to bring structure and efficiency in a mutative way to the rest of the collective, to the rest
hmm
of humanity. And so it's a great big deal. People want that. Tell me how, tell me that you know it's going to work best this way. Tell me what way you know it will work. People project upon you to be a knower of how things are best going to be led into. Is that true? Does that bring any kind of
yeah. I feel like recently I've been asked like, so what do we do about this? So how should we go about this? And it felt
like they expected you to have an answer?
it was directed towards me, and at the time I thought I was like, oh, you don't actually expect me. It felt rhetorical,
Right.
but I'm realizing it totally was not rhetorical. They were like, give me an
When you
answer.
have, yeah, when you have one fifth line, you can rest assured that's where people will project upon you. That you will be the savior and the saint and the fix it and the sheriff that rides into town and the the general, right?
Hmm,
All of
hmm.
these things that are this fifth line quality that you're going to do it sexy. You're good at it. Oh, that's attractive. That's an attractive explanation you're giving us there. You
Right.
know, type thing. It feels good. It's like, oh yeah, no, she's talking. She's saying the thing. She knows. Listen. This when
Mhm.
people project upon you to know, That's your recognition will know if do you know. You're getting to be old enough with enough depth to where at least half the time you'll be like, oh my God, I know this. And
Yeah.
boom, now you're practical. Your fifth line practical about what you explain. All I can give you for advice on that for sure is make what you explain practical, or just say the timing isn't right and make them wait. That fifth line is sexy. If they project upon it and you successfully make them wait, guess what they're doing? They will wait.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee it's just a likelihood they will wait, and that's where good jobs and opportunities come from, frankly, because they want that fifth line energy. And when you only have one gate with a fifth line on it, you can go to it and really make that be a diagnosis you can sort of count on. And it
Mm.
becomes your truth. What you explain is your truth. So let them project upon you, because the right ones will pull out even more of your truth. The thing is, you'll hear your own self saying it.
Yeah. So I had a conversation. I was like, sometimes when I'm in conversation with people, I'll say things I've never thought before. And I'm like, wow, that's the realest thing I've ever said. And I've never thought that before until just now. It's very interesting. I just said that.
And it's juicy, where all this, I'm going to say where it all comes from, the totality, but one spot that is vibrating in with its sound and its noise is gate 61.
Hmm.
61 says, I wish to be quiet. It's at the top of your body graph. Hey, Moana, can we go back to full screen? Because I'm done looking at this body graph for now. Yeah, sorry to be sudden about that.
No,
Um, as a manifesting generator, I skip all steps, including politeness and all kinds of things I just forget. It's like, oh no, we're done now. Yeah.
we're done. It's like, cool. Oh, it's funny.
61, but I'm going to let you do it. Pull up your book and go to 61. You have line 1 and line 2 of 61. And
Mm-hmm.
remember, I said all your gates where you have a first or second line, you read that whole binary. You read the first and the second line to get a real extra flavor for whatever it's doing.
Okay. You want me to start now?
Variables that do that. But 61, you have both. You have a first and a second line of 61.
Okay.
So read them out.
So gate 61, inner truth mystery, the awareness of universal underlying principles. In line 1, it's occult knowledge, a natural psychic awareness that empowers principles of universalization. The
Read
pressure
2.
to
Don't read on. Don't read on. Read 2.
okay,
Because I want you to read those 2 on. Yeah. Go ahead.
okay. Where the second one. You mean the second line under line 1 or line 2?
No. Line 2. Right. Sorry. Read line 2 and then the exaltation
Okay.
only.
The moon, exalted and so gifted by this position, is a far reaching, a nourishing influence, free of guile and powerfully attractive.
What's the name of that line? Brilliance or
Natural
natural brilliance?
brilliance. Natural
Natural
brilliance.
brilliance and occult knowledge. You
Mm,
tell me, do you need to get to the center of things? You do.
yeah.
That's why I called you a knower. That's why I wrote down, she thinks she needs to know. She's a knower that needs to know. And you're right, because it's the pressure to think that you need to know and solve this mystery and sort of get into what that mystery might be. It's foundational. The
Mm,
occult knowledge is not an occult bad thing. It's just occult just means at the foundation. Get
yeah.
me all of the knowledge, including the mystical stuff. I want it all. And
Mm,
because it's again foundational. First line and the second line is a natural brilliance. It's a little hermit that keeps getting called out. When it pops out, boy, that's why people go to you and they're like, oh my God, how did you know to say that? Where did that come from? It's unconscious. We
yeah.
channel our unconscious lines.
Mm,
I don't know that that's what we channel through our self as a totality. The black lines have plenty to do with stuff, but I can guarantee you we channel primarily and greatly through the unconscious because it just shows up. And that's what we call channeling.
mhm,
Channeling is our design side talking to us, if
mhm,
not
mhm,
fully, at least mostly, and that's my point about it. And so all unconscious stuff, we're all channelers. So when you start to notice you're a channeler, you recognize, yeah, you are. And 61 says, I have a natural brilliance for that yummy, juicy, whatever the hell we're going to find out it is, occult knowledge. And I
mm,
don't know what natural brilliance is, because it's a second line. I can't do anything about that. It knows what it knows when it knows it. It's not up to me. It's an
Yeah.
individual gate. It's not up to me. And when I do know, I'll empower you with it. I can't wait to, because it'll invoke a feeling that will fleet. It will rise up and then it will dissipate. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not losing. I'm not missing out. It's that went in me, and it'll be a heavy, deep clinging fire feeling that keeps showing up now and again, and it's hungry for that feeling, and then it will fade. And you start to get to be great with that rhythm in the recognition that you never forget those experiences. Even if you
Mm.
can't recall them totally in the moment, a year from now, it's like, what was that? They're there. And they keep showing back up, and you keep saying things out of the blue. It's like, oh my God, I forgot I remembered that. And that's what your variable is doing for you. It's a mixed up variable. It's in the changing zone of the variable grid. And so it really is, it's like going at each other, both of them.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's no uniformity to your variable other than in that it's uniform in that way.
Yeah.
There's only 16 variables. It's not like there's anything weird about it. It's just that it's a changing place is why I
Right.
call it the way I'm saying it, because your variable tells me to say it that way. And so when I look at it and I just think to myself, oh, we're all channeling all this stuff. 61 is profound. 43 is profound in you. I'm reading these individual ones. 14 is in the first line, and that just wants to get a move on to make it prettier.
Hmm.
It doesn't know what that's all about, but it's always researching that and checking into that. You got a lot of first lines in your body graph,
Yes.
decent number of them. And so you add it all up, and this occult knowledge has a natural brilliance that is totally in line with the fact that you have a second profile line in your profile. It's all just so harmonizing with it. And you recognize that occult knowledge that shows up as a natural brilliance. It just shows up.
Yeah.
Is it up to you when it shows up?
No.
No, not
No.
really. It's
No.
just like it's like what gate one describes, inspiration, which is and always will be in the pulse, in the creative pulse, independent of will. You can't will it to happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, same thing with the knowing. It just shows up. And after that, then you know. Um, the last thing I just wanted to point out was since all of your spleen definition, almost all of it is unconscious, the
Yeah.
awareness is spooky. And the same thing with gate 61. Gate 61 by its very virtue is spooky, and it hears everything, and every little noise can mean something, and sometimes it's stuck returning to that. So that
Hmm.
61 process, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, can you still hear me? Yep. And now the throat is the opposite. The throat where all the manifestation happens, where it's all like, oh, I'm going to make it happen. This is where I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
It can do. And when are you going to do it? I'm going to do it right now. I want to do it now. Look at this. It's exciting. That's conscious. So that's a real head trip. Where's it coming from? How do I know what I know? I don't know, but I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing. That's the conscious part of me. Yeah,
Yeah.
seeking, and I 35 expect some progression on all of that, and 20 knows it's right now. No, I'm snappy dappy right now. I'm frosty. I'm frosty, Captain. Don't worry, it's right now. That's you.
Hmm.
So you're aware of all of that. So the commanding, desirous has feelings way of the design of the throat center, the manifestation of everything has no idea where its awareness comes from because it's unconscious. And it doesn't need to know. All it needs to know is that's how it works. And then you keep watching. And over time, that watching just becomes such profound. No, that's how it works. And then next thing you know, you are aware of your red stuff. You still don't know when it's going to arrive, but when it
Right.
arrives, it's no longer surprised. You're totally aware. I get it. So I'm going to say that's you in a nutshell, but that ain't no nutshell, honey.
No, it wasn't. That's a whole thing. That was a whole thing.
I'm done though. I think it's a good resting point.
I think so. Thank you so much. That was so illuminating. And I feel like I have a bedrock of understanding a lot of things when it comes to human design, but I feel like the way you speak to some of them is just, yeah, so expansive. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's, and kind of reminded me of things. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
So welcome, Christy. It's
Very
really
and like embodied knowledge.
That's what it is, man.
Yeah,
I
you're
got
just
called
like spitting it. I'm like, yeah, I love this.
17. It's been 17 years almost now. Yeah, I'd say it's
Wow.
17 years. Sometime late '08, I got called, and what to do? Everyone
Hmm.
thought I was a freak. It's like, Dan, that's crazy. So like, I can't help it. So,
No,
but
that's
thank you.
awesome. Love
You
it.
gotta get deep. That's what I love to do. Get deep, and I'm glad you're in it, dude. Have you noticed so many more people are in human design now? They're looking. It's
Yeah,
working.
people want to know. They need
So
it.
if desire is your motivation, that means you want to change the world.
Apparently.
Apparently, isn't that that's a big risk. That's a lot of task they gave us.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
allegedly. Don't commit to anything.
I'm not. Look, my two said it doesn't know. I
Don't
don't know. I
don't know.
don't know. It's
We're
awesome.
done. This is great, Moana. How did we do?
It was a very in depth, and I was like, oh my, Crystal's like juiced up on Danny's sacral.
No, but I saw her rubbing her eye. I'm like, okay, done, 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 done. I saw
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
really itching. There wasn't like
No, I'm sure it is, but I have a way of making people fall asleep. I did it to Moana. It's not my fault.
Yeah, no, no. Again, like most of our team are non-sacral. Danny's sacral box is what keeps us going, but we can only handle so much before it's like leaking out, and we're like, ah. So that's that's me and me other sacral co-host in a nutshell.
I love
But
that. I'm good.
anyways, again,
Thank
human
you,
design, we
Moana.
know what our box is like. We have no capacity to hang on to this juice anymore. But it was juicy and yummy, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of insights for our audience watching along, and of course for you, like rewatching the replay and all that good
Please,
stuff,
yes, yeah,
right?
yep.
So again, there's all sorts of goodies in there, and that's the whole point of like watching the replays for everybody, not just our audience, but for you as a guest as well, and us as co-hosts, where we're like, ooh, yeah, we can pull this out for this,
Mm.
or how can we improve the show further? So without further ado, let me have Crystal plug herself one more time, and I'm going to put the link in the comments so people can go follow her and check out all the amazing things that she's doing. So I'm putting in her Instagram. And then, Crystal, if you want to plug yourself, Danny, I'm going to take you off.
Hello, hello. Thank you. Yeah, the Crystalverse. I've mentioned that multiple times. It's also there, but you can find me at the Crystalverse. I am a fledgling in so many things. So my website's coming. But in the meantime, in between time, you can keep up with me there. I will not promise that I'm sharing everything, but I will
Uh-oh.
try to, especially these next 2 months. That's my own goal. So yeah, and reach out if you ever want to connect. Uh-oh.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Amazing.
reach out if you ever want to connect.
Yeah, of
Mhm.
course. She is a breath of knowledge with breath and with yoga and with shamanic practices. So, yay. So, without further ado, friends, thank you for joining us tonight. And again, please, thank you for subscribing and following and sharing this with your friends. We are very grateful to our viewers, both on and offline. And with that, we bid you adieu and thank you for joining us. Bye bye.